Chapter 149. The blue cocktail was like a dancing blue flame. Clusters of flames slid from the glass into Yi Huanyan's mouth. From her throat to her stomach, she seemed to be licked by the tongue of fire, burning her face. Ling Han frowned even more. Yi Huanyan, you should go back and rest. Seeing Ling Han's tender and protective look, Shang Anren winked at several female artists in the distance. Soon, Ling Han was surrounded by a group of beautiful female artists. President Ling, I'd like to propose a toast to you. Me too, me too. Thank you, President Ling, for cultivating us. Yi Huanyan put down the glass and leaned on the table beside her. She turned around and walked a few steps before she fell into a broad embrace. It was warm and fresh, as if there was the smell of sunshine. Yi Huanyan, wake up. Why did you drink so much? Su Nianhua supported her with one hand and frowned slightly as he felt for the room card in his pocket with the other. There were many hotels near the cultural center in the city center, which was one of the reasons why Yi Huanyan chose this place for the annual party. After all, after the party was over, there would definitely be people who drank too much and couldn't go home because of special circumstances. Maybe they were customers or ordinary employees of the company. Su Nianhua held the room card and hesitated at the door for a few seconds. He looked down at the drunk woman. She wouldn't be able to go home in this state. He made up his mind and opened the door to take her in. There was a fragrance in the air. After he put Yi Huanyan on the bed in the dim light, he turned on the bedside lamp behind him and saw the scene in the room. The bed was full of red rose petals sprinkled around Yi Huanyan. The black dress made her look like a noble and elegant black swan. She turned over and lay on her back on the bed. Her hair was loosened and spread like seaweed on the white sheets. As she moved, it entangled with the bright red rose petals. Su Nianhua was slightly stunned. His eyes deepened a little. He gritted his teeth and turned to get water. Yen, drink some water. He sat on the bedside and put one hand under Yi Huanyan's neck to hold her in his arms. He fed her some water, trying to dilute the alcohol in her body and sober her up. Her delicate skin slid across the back of his hand, making his face tighten inexplicably. The person in his arms suddenly raised her hand and knocked over the cup. He was about to pick it up, but his neck was hooked by two hands. His whole body and Yi Huanyan fell into the rose petals together. Yen. Su Nianhua's voice tightened, and the look in his eyes deepened. He stroked the hair behind her ear, revealing her delicate features. His cheeks were slightly red, and his eyes were intoxicated as he looked at her. Following his subtle movements, his fan-like eyelashes trembled slightly. His heart stirred, and he whispered, Yen, I still love you. I love you too. Yi Huanyan closed her eyes. Her mind was in chaos. His face appeared from time to time, cold but with the warmth she expected. He said he loved her, and she was wild with joy. Su Nianhua's eyes were full of uncontrollable excitement. His kisses fell on Yi Huanyan's forehead, eyelashes, and the tip of her nose. When he was about to touch her lips, her hot breath sprinkled on his face from the tip of her nose. Han. His movements suddenly stopped. His whole body stiffened, and his eyes became cold little by little. Who am I? Ling Han. Han. Ling Han? The person beside him? Shang Anren's meaningful words echoed in his mind over and over again. Yi Huanyan. Su Nianhua put his hands on her sides. His clear eyes were full of anger. His roar resounded throughout the room. He never thought that Yi Huanyan would fall in love with someone else. At the annual meeting, after seeing Yi Huanyan being taken away by Su Nianhua with her own eyes, Shang Anren sneered and took a meaningful look at the wine glass thrown on the table. Sister Anren, I saw Su Nianhua take Yi Huanyan into that room with my own eyes. The woman's voice on the phone was very sure. Shang Anren hung up the phone, put her mobile phone into her handbag, and walked towards the tall figure at the venue. Han, the banquet is almost over. Shall we go? Ling Han held the wine glass in his hand and looked around. He didn't see the figure he should have seen. He frowned. Have you seen Secretary Yi? Shang Anren was slightly stunned and made a surprised look. Secretary Yi. She just left with Su Nianhua. Aren't they very familiar with each other? He should have sent her home. Su Nianhua sent Yi Huanyan back several times. It was not a big deal. However, when he thought of her drunk appearance in another man's car, Ling Han's expression turned a little ugly. Let's go. He coldly spat out these words. In the hotel room, under Su Nianhua's roar, Yi Huanyan woke up faintly. She slowly opened her eyes and gradually saw the man on top of her. The intoxication in her eyes was instantly replaced by panic. Lu Shen. Why? Su Nianhua asked coldly. His voice was very low. You fell in love with Ling Han? In the panic, Yi Huanyan didn't have time to explain to him. She pushed him away in a flurry, struggled to get out of bed, and ran to the door. She pulled the door twice and then turned back to look at Su Nianhua in disbelief. What are you doing? Her expression made Su Nianhua slightly stunned. He got up, walked over, and twisted the doorknob. It couldn't be opened. Shang Anren. He slowly spat out 3 words with a dignified expression. No wonder she took the initiative to talk at the dinner party. She even gave him a room card. He was careless. Yi Huanyan shrank in the corner and looked at Su Nianhua with a panicked expression. A man and a woman alone in a room. No matter who came in and saw such a situation, they wouldn't believe her innocence. Noticing the panic in her eyes, Su Nianhua turned his head and glanced at the door that couldn't be opened. His mind was a mess. After hesitating for a few seconds, he decided to explain why the door couldn't be opened first. The room card was given to me by Shang Anren. You drank too much, so I didn't think too much. I just wanted to find a place for you to rest. He frowned and glanced at the messy bed. As for just now, I gave you water to drink to wake you up. You knocked over the glass, so don't get me wrong. I didn't intend to do anything to you, especially when you were calling someone else's name. The glass of water was still at the end of the bed. The vigilance in Yi Huanyan's eyes gradually faded. She turned back to look at the door. What do we do now? Su Nianhua turned on his phone and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. There was no signal. He pondered for a moment. I'll call the service desk downstairs and ask them to come up and fix the door lock. Yi Huanyan frowned. Let me call. Su Nianhua's voice was too recognizable. If she wasn't careful, she would be recognized. She didn't want to be in the headlines again. 10 minutes later, Su Nianhua sat on the sofa with a serious expression. Looking at Yi Huanyan, who was sitting by the bed, making the phone call, his brows furrowed even tighter. Stop calling. It's obvious that this is a trap. We've both been set up. Su Nianhua's voice sounded behind him. Chapter 150. Hearing Su Nianhua's voice, Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds before she finally gave up and hung up the busy tone of the phone. What's your relationship with Ling Han? Su Nianhua finally couldn't help but ask. It's nothing. Yi Huanyan bit her lip and avoided Su Nianhua's questioning gaze. It's nothing? Su Nianhua stood up from the sofa. A man who has nothing to do with you, would you keep calling his name when you're drunk? Yi Huanyan, tell me, why did you fall in love with another man? What's so good about him? The anger in Su Nianhua's eyes made her panic. She didn't dare to look into his eyes, and she didn't know how to respond to his question. Looking at her frightened expression, a trace of sadness appeared in Su Nianhua's eyes. He took 2 steps back and put a relatively safe distance between himself and Yi Huanyan. If that's really the case, I hope you'll never forgive me. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds. She slowly raised her head and looked at the figure in front of the window in astonishment. There was a deadlock in the air, and no one spoke. It felt strange in such a room. Yi Huanyan went to the bathroom and splashed some water on her face, trying to wake up her splitting headache. In fact, she was the same as Su Nianhua. At this moment, she had fallen into such a trap and was at the mercy of others. They couldn't jump down from the 20th floor, and there was no way for them to get out. She changed into her wet dress and walked out of the bathroom in a bathrobe. Su Nianhua stood in front of the window with his back to her. Yi Huanyan suddenly felt a little bitter. She looked at the figure and gritted her teeth. Not long after you left, my mother remarried with me. The man my mother remarried is Ling Han's father. The figure stiffened slightly and slowly turned around. Ling Han just came back from abroad. I've known him for more than 10 years. Yi Huanyan lowered her head and looked lonely. As you can see, I like him, but I'm just his secretary. He doesn't love me, and we can't be together. Su Nianhua frowned. Because of Shang Anren? He won't be with me, but the person with him won't be Shang Anren. I know him. Yi Huanyan raised her head and met Su Nianhua's gaze. Lu Shen, I'm sorry. For the past 10 years, the person who had spent so many days by her side was Ling Han. Even if he sneered at her now, the disappointment had not accumulated to a certain extent. She still held on to the slightest bit of hope for him. Because of this, she could not leave him. Su Nianhua stared at her in a daze and remembered when they first met 10 years ago. Who would have thought that Lu Shen, who ranked first in the school's top 100, liked rock music the most? He didn't go to cram school after school. Instead, he secretly went to an underground band to support other people's original music. In the eyes of those girls who were infatuated with him, he seemed to always be the high and mighty head of the student department, who had a good family background, top-notch grades, and a promising future. Everyone had the commotion of adolescence, and he was no exception. He only hated that he didn't tell Yi Huanyan 10 years ago that he was actually the first one to like her. In Chengde Middle School, she was a transfer student who was inserted into the class because of the teaching director. When she first entered the class, she was ostracized. Some people couldn't hold back their curiosity and went to check her grade ranking. It turned out that she was forcibly inserted into their experimental class as one of the bottom 10 in the whole school. So, all kinds of disdainful looks and all kinds of students who blindly followed her came one after another. Back then, Lu Shen was the favorite in the eyes of many teachers. He always did things by the book and never made a mistake. But on the night of the school's anniversary, he was caught by the dean climbing the wall. If this kind of thing were to spread back to the Lu family and to his mother, who was the head of the student parent-teacher conference, he could almost imagine what kind of lecture he would receive. Yi Huanyan's appearance seemed to be arranged by the heavens. It was different from the routine of idol dramas, and it was different from all the first love he had imagined. She was like a tsunami, subverting his entire youth. Student Lu Shen climbed over the wall in order to catch me. These words came out of Yi Huanyan's mouth as if there was no need to think. The dean looked like he suddenly understood. He angrily took a ruler and hit Yi Huanyan's palm 3 times. Tomorrow, ask your mother to come to the office again. You don't study, and you're affecting Lu Shen. She covered her hand and grimaced. Dean, why don't you save up? My mother has been very busy recently. I guess I'll make you angry in 2 days. Wait until the end of the month to settle the score, okay? Lu Shen had never seen a person who could be so thick-skinned, and it was even a girl. Naturally, the dean was very angry. When Yi Huanyan left the office, she swaggered casually. It was obvious that she was a regular here. After leaving the office, he couldn't say thank you. Instead, she patted him on the shoulder with a nonchalant expression. Class monitor, seeing that I took the blame for you, can you help me do my New Year's homework? His face stiffened. A certain someone swallowed. Why don't you lend it to me after you're done? You should do your own homework. He looked old-fashioned. But I don't know how to. Yi Huanyan showed a sad expression. Your experimental class's curriculum is too difficult. I don't understand at all. What kind of brains do you have? Hey, class monitor, it's settled then. The second day of the New Year's holiday, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll wait for you at the McDonald's next to the school. I won't leave until I see you. At that time, he didn't know what was going on in his mind. It was like a ball of paste, and he agreed to her in a daze. Later, he gave her tutoring, saying that he didn't want to owe her a favor. But in the end, she didn't make it to the bottom 10 in the final exam. His efficiency was too low. He still refused to give up. Even she gave up, saying that she wasn't cut out for studying. For a period of time, she avoided him, but he would block her at the door of the classroom. After school, he would take her to tutoring. All the students in the school thought that Yi Huanyan was chasing him, but no one knew that he liked her. As early as the night of the school anniversary, under the moonlight, he climbed on the wall and saw her holding an ice cream in her mouth and using her hands and feet to climb on the wall in the cold weather. He had already secretly planted this seed. He was not a slow person when it came to relationships. After confirming his feelings, he used the fastest time to confess to Yi Huanyan, and naturally, they were together. Like all the couples in high school, after self-study at night, they walked 2 laps in the school field. In the morning, he brought her warm milk, and at noon, he gave her half of the bento sent by the servants at home. He secretly used a black and a white couple ceramic cup to help her answer the teacher's questions under the cheers of the whole class. When he kissed her cheek for the first time, his whole arm was trembling. When he was cheered by her and returned a deep kiss, his mind was blank. And the secret between them was an important reason why he liked her so much. Chapter 151. The Dirty and Messy Underground Band. She could ignore the junkyard environment and beat to the music with those people. She even took off her school uniform jacket and tied it around her waist to perform a hula dance. She could quickly get along with her friends in the band who were more than 10 years older than her. She was completely different from the girls in school who were pampered. At Christmas, she gave him a beautiful key ring with his favorite guitar pendant on it. The dream that he did not dare to tell anyone when he was young originated from her encouragement. Later on, it took root and gradually became his motivation. Now that he thought about it, it was only a short period of less than a year. He had too many expectations for love. At an age when he had nothing, he tried his best to give her something. In the end, it led to his mother's anger and desperate obstruction. He did not know how embarrassed Yi Huanyan was when she went back to school after being humiliated by his mother. How could such an optimistic person like her not bear it and finally transfer to another school and leave the place where they had memories of each other? During that time, he could not see her. His mother knew his character well and only said one sentence to him. "Every time you see her, I can go to school and humiliate her once. The more you love her, the more I hate her. Every time you do something for her, I'll give her 10 times the punishment. Lu Shen, I'll give you 3 days to mentally prepare yourself for leaving the country." The feelings of youth were firm and brave, but also very fragile. The most fragile part was that no matter how hard you tried, you found that the decision was not in your hands. You did not have the ability. Yi Huanyan had done too many things for him. In his short and difficult youth, that year together was his only good memory. So he could not let it go, even though she had made it very clear when he first met her when he returned to China. He still could not let it go. Whether it was guilt or admiration, his heart was full of her and could not accommodate anyone else. When he first found out that she and Ling Han were together, he originally thought that she was just an office romance and an infatuation with her boss. He did not expect that there was such a relationship behind it. She calmly admitted that she loved Ling Han in front of him and also calmly told him that they would not be together. Behind these seemingly honest words, there were many intricate relationships. He did not need to think carefully to know that it was the bits and pieces of her life that had nothing to do with him in the past 10 years. He had missed too much in the past 10 years. What do you have to be sorry for? He suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly and muttered, "I should be the one apologizing. No matter what, I should be the one apologizing." An awkward atmosphere filled the air. After a while, he took a deep breath. Finally, he didn't want to talk in such a tense atmosphere anymore. He admitted defeat and changed the topic. "Shang Enren's plan may just be to hope that something will happen between you and me. You don't have to worry too much. When the room service is in the morning, we can go out." His comforting words did not alleviate Yi Huanyan's worries. Yi Huanyan faintly felt that Shang Anren was not such a simple person. Jinjiang Park Villa. Ling Han sat on the sofa and lowered his head to look at the minute hand on his wrist. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Yi Huanyan was still not back, and he could not get through to her. That night, many people did not sleep at all. Some were worried, some were angry, and some had sinister intentions. In the hotel, because of the alcohol, Yi Huanyan could only hold on until the wee hours of the morning. In the end, she fell into a deep sleep, even though she did not sleep well that night. Su Nianhua covered her with the quilt several times before returning to the sofa to take a nap. Until dawn. A ray of sunlight shone into the hotel room and just happened to sprinkle on Su Nianhua's face. An inexplicable noise at the door disturbed his indescribable nightmare that night. He suddenly woke up from the sofa, stared at the door for a while, and quickly walked over. "Is anyone here?" a waiter outside asked. "Yes," he coughed, and his voice was a little hoarse. "Why is the door broken?" "No one answered when I called your service desk last night." The waiter's voice came from the other side of the door, apologizing. "I'm sorry, sir. Please wait a moment. We'll find a repairman to open the door. It's not only your room, but also the other rooms. Last night, our room card system malfunctioned. Please wait for me for 10 minutes. Su Nianhua looked unhappy, but there was nothing he could do. He turned around and glanced at the woman who was still sleeping on the bed. The quilt was kicked out of shape, and the way she frowned made one's heart ache. Su Nianhua covered her with the quilt again. He sat by the bed and looked at her face carefully for the last time. After 10 years, compared to 10 years ago, there was an added charm in her purity. Perhaps it was because the sound of the repairman outside the door was too loud that it woke her up. She slowly opened her eyes and got up from the bed. Su Nianhua avoided his gaze and turned to look at the door. The waiter said that the repairman is opening the door. He'll probably be there in a while. Before he could finish his sentence, with a bang, his entire body was knocked away. More than a dozen cameras of various sizes swarmed in from outside the door. "It's Su Nianhua. What's going on with the woman on the bed?" Yi Huanyan's entire body stiffened. Su Nianhua was stunned for a second before he instantly reacted. He grabbed the blanket and directly wrapped Yi Huanyan in it. He stood in front of the camera alone and frowned. "Stop taking photos." "Who let you in?" "Su Nianhua, is this your girlfriend? What happened to you last night? Will you get married?" The sound of taking photos came one after another. Yi Huanyan's mind was blank. She was wrapped in the blanket. Through the gap, she saw a dense group of people in front of her. They surrounded her, crazily taking photos and crazily questioning her. "Are you a one-night stand? What's the woman's identity? Is the woman your fan?" Su Nianhua's attempt to stop them did not have any effect. There were already bold reporters who came to pull off the blanket on Yi Huanyan's body. Amidst his angry roar, they still aimed their cameras at them, unwilling to let go of even a single piece of news. Suddenly, there was a violent commotion at the door. No one knew who cried out in alarm, but there was the sound of fists and feet hitting each other. 4 or 5 strong men barged in without any explanation. They snatched all the cameras they saw and smashed them on the spot. Amidst the smashing sounds, the scene was chaotic. The screams of female reporters rose and fell one after another. "What's going on? Who are you? How dare you? How can you touch my camera? Hey, you can't smash the camera." Not long after, a clear man's voice sounded at the door. It was a little cold and carried a threatening aura. "Friends from the media, if you want to leave today, then put down the camera and all the photos in your phones. Leave within a minute. After a minute, I can guarantee that you won't be able to leave even if you want to." This voice caused the scene to fall into silence. When Yi Huanyan, who was under the blanket, heard this voice, it was as if a clap of thunder sounded in her mind. With a boom, her mind went blank. It was Qiao Mu's voice. Chapter 152. Sounds of footsteps could be heard in the room one after another. Pleasure was indeed a big shot in the industry, and no one dared to easily offend him. At the very least, no one dared to stand out. After the room was cleared, the bodyguards cleared the entire corridor on the hotel's 20th floor, and a tall figure slowly stepped into the room from behind Xiao Mu. The scattered rose petals on the bed, the man beside the bed, and the rich fragrance in the air were all very enticing. Su Nianhua watched as Ling Han paced around the room. He did not seem to be in a hurry, and after a dozen seconds, he walked to the bed and gripped a corner of the blanket. "Director Ling." Su Nianhua gripped his wrist, a vigilant cold light in his eyes. "Thank you for bringing people to help me out, but right now, I hope you can take your people and leave first." The tightening grip on Ling Han's wrist caused his expression to gradually turn chilly. A woman who can make Su Nianhua disregard his reputation to bring to the hotel for a night of pleasure should be a stunning beauty. What? As the boss who just helped you out, I don't even have the right to admire her? This is my personal matter, Director Ling. Is that so? Your personal matter? A cold light flashed in Ling Han's eyes, and he slowly turned his head, his gaze landing on the black hair peeking out from the white sheets. Do you also think so? Secretary Yi. The person under the blanket stiffened. After a while, she slowly said in a trembling voice, "Lu Shen, you leave first." "Yen Yen." Su Nianhua's expression darkened as he looked at the bundle of blanket with a frown. Ling Han impatiently swept him a glance and said coldly, "Did you hear that? Do you need me to repeat it?" Remy, who had hurried over, tactfully walked up and grabbed Su Nianhua. "Brother Hua, why are you still here? Hurry and leave with me. Did you forget that I still have a contract to sign today? I can only go home for the new year after signing it." After a muffled bang sound, the room returned to silence. The blanket on Yi Huanyan's body slid down little by little. The moment Ling Han's gaze landed on the corner of the bathrobe on her shoulder, a strong gust of wind rose from the ground. The entire sheet was violently pulled off by him and thrown to the ground. Her fine black hair fluttered in the wind before landing on her shoulders. She abruptly closed her eyes and hugged her arms tightly in this sudden gust of wind, shivering. In such a room with such an ambiguous atmosphere, there was no need to question what had happened. "Yi Huanyan, you're getting bolder and bolder." Ling Han pulled her up from the bed, his eyes cold. "It's not what you think. This is a trap. Someone is framing me," Yi Huanyan explained incoherently. The pain from her wrist made her suck in a breath of cold air. "Frame you? Who wants to frame you? Were you drugged or knocked out and sent here? Or did someone hold a knife to your neck and force you to share a bed with Su Nianhua?" No, I didn't. I saw it with my own eyes." He took a deep breath. His eyes were burning with a raging fire. Yi Huanyan caught a glimpse of the phone by the bed from the corner of her eye. She suddenly remembered what happened last night and hurriedly explained. "There's no signal here. We tried to call, but we couldn't, so—" "Enough!" The room seemed to tremble as he roared. Yi Huanyan froze. She knew that no matter how much she explained, he wouldn't listen. "Are you that fond of him?" "I didn't." Her voice became choked. "Lu Shen. Not many people know this name now, right? You remember it so clearly." In an inconspicuous cafe opposite the hotel, two women sat in a remote corner. They were both wearing hats with the brims lowered. They ordered 2 cups of coffee in front of them. Steam curled up from them. "Sister Anren, if Su Nianhua didn't bring Yi Huanyan to the hotel room last night, wouldn't our plan fall through?" The one who spoke was a petite woman. Her tone was doubtful, and her eyes were frighteningly deep. It was obvious that she had undergone surgery and was not a natural eyelid. Sitting opposite her was the movie queen, Shang Anren, who was now very popular. She came to this cafe early in the morning to sit and wait for a good show. It didn't disappoint her. First, 7 to 8 media cars parked outside the hotel. The reporters carried cameras and broke into the hotel. Ling Han's SUV followed closely behind. Then, the bodyguards from the pleasure security department came down, along with Xiao Mu. There was no way to calm this situation without causing a scene. Originally, I wanted to use some means to make Yi Huanyan obediently give in, but I didn't expect her to get drunk. She asked for it. Even if Su Nianhua didn't bring her to the hotel, I naturally have other ways to make them stay in the same room. However, she didn't expect Yi Huanyan, this brainless person, to save her trouble and not use the people she hired. Then what should we do now? Shang Anren looked out the window. What should we do? Wait and see. What if nothing happened between them at all? I heard that Su Nianhua doesn't seem to be interested in women. He doesn't even want to be tied to a scandal. Previously, Bing Qing and the others went on a show with him, so they pay attention to keeping a distance from women. Hearing this, Shang Anren sneered. There is no man in this world who can accept his own woman making a cuckold out of him. Even if it's suspected, he won't accept it. The estrangement started from these things. I don't care what happened between them in the past. After this incident, Ling Han will never completely trust her again. Of course, there are exceptions. But she believed that Ling Han would not be an exception. In the hotel room, facing Ling Han's questioning eyes, Yi Huanyan's eyes gradually filled with tears. I really didn't. Looking at her sobbing appearance, Ling Han's heart softened a little and gradually found a trace of reason. He let go of Yi Huanyan's wrist and thought that when he just entered the room, Su Nianhua was neatly dressed and didn't look strange. Maybe he really misunderstood her. Don't cry, I'll give you 5 minutes. You'd better explain to me what happened last night. His cold voice was in the room. Yi Huanyan sobbed a few times, raised her arm to wipe her tears, and began to explain in a choked voice, I was drunk last night. And he just sent me here to rest. The room card was given by Shang Anren. I woke up not long after I came in, but the door couldn't be opened, and the phone at the front desk couldn't be reached. Nothing happened between me and Lu. Su Nianhua. When she said this, she raised her head and looked at Ling Han. If anything happened, I'll be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Ling Han's eyes deepened a little. Seeing that she didn't seem to be acting, he believed her a little in his heart. Although his voice was cold, there was no anger just now. Hurry up and change your clothes. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's face changed slightly. She glanced at him blankly, and the panic in her eyes gradually disappeared. She hurried to the bathroom to change clothes. Chapter 153. Yi Huanyan's coat was in the corner of the sofa. She changed into her gown and walked out of the bathroom. She lowered her head to look for her coat. When she walked past Ling Han, her long hair fell behind her back, and a faint red mark appeared on her snow-white shoulder. However, his expression suddenly changed. His eyes were fixated on the very obvious kiss mark on her neck. Yi Huanyan turned around to get her coat. At this moment, the phone in Ling Han's pocket vibrated twice. He slowly took it out and glanced at it. His colleague, who was reading a text message, suddenly noticed from the corner of his eye the signal was full. Let's go. I'm done packing. A woman's voice sounded behind him. It was still hoarse from crying. There was no response for a long time. Yi Huanyan frowned. When she slowly turned around, Ling Han's expression was very gloomy as he stared at her without moving. Your acting skills make me think that I can choose an agent from the agency department to bring you into the entertainment industry. His body exuded a chill, and his eyes seemed to be frozen with frost. I underestimated you. Yi Huanyan looked at him in a daze with a puzzled expression. What are you talking about? You acted according to the situation, and you played the trick of injuring yourself to gain sympathy. Zhang Mailan taught you by example. You can be considered to have surpassed her, Yi Huanyan. Ling Han gripped his phone tightly and stared at her coldly. In that case, before I say that you did these things behind my back, you'd better go in front of Grandma and cancel that ridiculous engagement. Following his gaze, Yi Huanyan turned her head. When her gaze landed on the kiss mark on her shoulder, her expression changed drastically. Ling Han, it's not like that. This is just a misunderstanding. Before her hand could touch Ling Han, she was flung away by his raised arm. She staggered, and her high heels suddenly tilted. She fell to the ground. When she raised her head, she heard the sound of the door closing. She clenched her fists so tightly that her nails were almost embedded in her flesh. The faint sobbing sound in the room grew louder and louder until it finally turned into a loud cry. The mournful sound traveled all the way to the door and echoed throughout the corridor. At the end of the corridor, the waiter who was responsible for opening the door just now took the envelope from a woman wearing a cap and low-key clothes. He looked very nervous. "No one will find out, right? If you don't tell me, no one will find out." The woman shoved the envelope into his hand. "Remember, if anyone asks if you called the front desk from that room last night, you must insist that you didn't." The waiter nodded hesitantly. Looking at the woman in front of him who was wearing a mask and leaving quickly, he felt that this person looked a little familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. In the cafe opposite the hotel, only Shang Anren was left in the seat of two people. When she saw an angry figure coming out of the door of the opposite hotel, she picked up the coffee and took a sip. The corner of her mouth raised a proud arc. "Yi Huanyan, I told you to be honest. You are not clean, so don't blame me for making a fuss." After Ling Han left the hotel, he didn't come home for 3 days. After the company's annual meeting, it was the Spring Festival holiday. Yi Huanyan waited for him at home for 3 days. She had thought about what had happened before and after. The words of explanation had come back and forth in her heart no less than 1,000 times, but she didn't wait for him to come back. Until Aunt Zhang called her. "Miss Yen Yen, it's almost New Year's Eve. Why haven't you come back yet? What are you busy with?" Aunt Zhang's tone was quite complaining. Yi Huanyan's heart was in a mess. She didn't know what to say when she received the call. "Aunt Zhang, I have something to deal with these 2 days. Can you tell Grandma that I will go back in 2 days?" "What do you mean in 2 days?" "Young master, who you only see a few times in a year, is back. It's not right that you don't come back, right?" Ling Han went back. Yi Huanyan raised her voice. She almost couldn't believe what she heard. "Oh, you don't know?" Aunt Zhang's tone was a little puzzled. "He's been back for a few days. Old Madam and I were wondering why you didn't come back. Young master said that you had something to do. I saw that old Madam was anxious, so I called you. You child, it's New Year. What can happen?" Yi Huanyan's brows gradually furrowed. In the past, when they went back to the old mansion, Ling Han would bring her back. Even if it was just for show, he would try his best to perform better in front of Grandma. Now, he wasn't even willing to put on a show? He really didn't believe himself. "Aunt Zhang, I understand. I will go back tonight." "Ah, that's right. Come back and stay for a while. Old Madam plans to prepare for your wedding after the New Year." Aunt Zhang's voice was full of joy, but Yi Huanyan couldn't feel happy. If Ling Han knew about this, he would probably fly into a rage. He might even lose his temper in front of Grandma. The words he said when he left the hotel echoed in her mind over and over again, and she couldn't get them out of her mind. In the afternoon, she arrived at the old mansion. The old mansion was in the old district of Lonjiang City. It was an antique house that was relatively quiet. It was surrounded by mountains and rivers, and it felt like a paradise. Aunt Zhang was waiting at the door early in the morning. The servants in the house helped to move the luggage out of the car. "Aunt Zhang, these are the clothes and shoes I bought for Grandma and some other miscellaneous things. Put them in the wet nurse's room. That box is some small gifts for the servants at home for the new year." Okay. "Can you tell me everything after dinner?" Aunt Zhang took her hand and turned to the servants who were moving the things. "Put the things Miss brought in the flower hall first. Don't knock them." Yi Huanyan had to give up. "By the way, Aunt Zhang, are there any servants who won't be coming home for the New Year this year?" After all, it was not the era of being sold as slaves. No matter how many servants there were at home, they still had to go home during the New Year. At this time, it was very difficult to find someone to serve Old Madam. Fortunately, there was Aunt Zhang, who had been by Old Madam's side all these years. "Oh, speaking of which, I have to tell you something." Aunt Zhang frowned and was a little embarrassed. "My niece is getting married after the New Year. Her parents passed away early, and I have to take care of the wedding. So I have to leave on New Year's Eve this year." Ah! Yi Huanyan exclaimed. You won't be here for the new year this year? Did you tell Grandma about this? I did. Old Madam gave me the money to go home for the new year. I'm just worried. Although there are servants at home, I'm afraid it will be troublesome for Miss and young Master to take care of those relatives who come to pay New Year's greetings. Yi Huanyan frowned and sighed. It's okay. Aunt Zhang, your family matters are more important. You can go back first. I will help take care of things at home. Aunt Zhang held Yi Huanyan's hand and sighed in relief. Ah, okay, with Miss Yen here, I can rest assured. As soon as my niece's wedding is over, I will immediately rush back. Also, after the 5th day of the new year, the servants at home will come back one after another. Miss, you don't have to worry too much. Chapter 154. It was almost the end of the year, and the servants in the old house were busy cleaning. They all wanted to finish their work as soon as possible so that they could go home early for the new year. In the dining room in the backyard, there was a table full of dishes that Yi Huanyan and Ling Han usually liked to eat. When the Ling family's old madam heard that Yi Huanyan was coming back today, she was very happy and personally cooked 2 dishes. Yi Huanyan stepped into the gatehouse of the backyard and saw the old lady standing at the door from afar. She was wearing a dark green embroidered gown and a beige woolen vest. Her silver hair was combed meticulously. Although she was over 70 years old, no one could compare with her temperament of a great lady. Grandma! Yi Huanyan hurriedly greeted her. It's so cold outside. Why are you standing at the door? Don't you feel cold wearing so little? The old madam liked Yi Huanyan's sweetness the most. She was like her mother. She held her hand and laughed. I was waiting for you. You said you were coming back for dinner. Why are you so late? It's getting dark. I packed some things, so I'm a little late. Yi Huanyan helped the old madam into the house. When she saw the table full of dishes, her eyes were filled with excitement. Grandma, you made this Westlake fish in vinegar yourself, right? Why? You can tell at a glance? Of course. No one in the family can make this dish so well except for you. You have a sweet mouth. After the old madam sat down with Yi Huanyan, she looked up at Aunt Zhang and frowned. Where's Ling Han? Tell him to come for dinner. Aunt Zhang frowned. Madam, I went to ask Miss Yen before she came. Young Master said that he would eat by himself in the study and won't come to accompany you. What did he say? The old madam's expression changed instantly. I'll go find him. Hey, Grandma! Yi Huanyan stopped the old lady. Don't worry, I'll go take a look. She took the initiative to say this. Firstly, she was afraid that Ling Han was still angry about what happened before and had a bad attitude towards her grandmother. Secondly, she wanted to communicate with him clearly before the new year. No matter what, she wanted to accompany her grandmother to spend the new year peacefully first. The old lady naturally agreed. She couldn't wait for Yi Huanyan and Ling Han to get along better. That way, she could hold her great-grandson sooner. After passing through a long corridor in the backyard and passing through 2 walls, they arrived at Ling Han's courtyard. The Ling family was a big family. This house was passed down from their ancestors. It was divided into 2 courtyards, one east and one west. The west courtyard was originally given to the second son of the Ling family's old master, who was also Ling Han's second grandfather. After his second grandfather passed away, this house naturally passed to Ling Han's eldest uncle. However, after the eldest uncle of the west courtyard brought his family to the United States, this courtyard was left empty and no one lived in it now. The Ling family was a big family, but there were very few people. The only ones who could be considered real blood relatives were this eldest uncle's family. They only came back during the new year to pay respects to their ancestors and to visit their aunt's family. Yi Huanyan walked through the corridor and walls of the east courtyard and arrived in front of Ling Han's study. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. Come in. A cold voice sounded from the other side of the door. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She raised her hand and pushed open the door. She stepped over the threshold and walked in. There were 2 walls of bookshelves in the study, filled with all kinds of books. At this moment, Ling Han was facing the wall of books, holding a book in his hand. His golden-framed eyes made him look much more cultured and refined. It was as if the hostility on his body had dissipated. Yi Huanyan inexplicably let out a sigh of relief. "Grandma asked me to call you over for dinner." Ling Han didn't even raise his head and calmly said, "I said, I'll eat in the study." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned and hesitated for a moment. Grandma cooked the dishes herself. She probably wants to eat together as a family. You, family? Ling Han's voice interrupted Yi Huanyan's words. He raised his head and shifted his gaze from the book to Yi Huanyan. His gaze gradually turned cold. "Who gave you the illusion that you're family with us?" Yi Huanyan was stunned on the spot. With a bang, he closed the thick finance book in his hand and glanced at her coldly. He walked toward the desk and left only 2 words. "Get out." Yi Huanyan gritted her teeth. "If you're unhappy because of what happened at the hotel last time, I think I can explain that nothing happened between me and Su Nianhua. Whether you believe it or not, in front of Grandma, we shouldn't let her worry. Get out." Ling Han's expression darkened. "I don't like to say the same thing too many times." Her heart sank. The words that she hadn't finished speaking were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say a word. His prejudice against her wasn't just limited to the incident with Su Nianhua at the hotel last time. When prejudice seeped into the bone marrow, no matter what you did, it was wrong. No matter what you said, it was wrong. When she walked out of the study, she tripped over the threshold. When she held the door frame with her hand, she was scratched by the barbs on the wooden door frame. A long bloody mark appeared on her palm. She sucked in a breath of cold air and endured the pain as she closed the door. She turned around and walked toward the dining room in the backyard. Old Madam was chatting with Aunt Zhang. When she saw Yi Huanyan return, a loving smile appeared on her face. "I was just saying that after the new year, we'll start preparing for your wedding with Ling Han. You 2 have known each other for so many years. Since you're going to have a wedding, you should do it early to avoid gossip." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. "Grandma, let's ask for Ling Han's opinion first." What opinion can he have? Aren't you living with him? Our Ling family is not an irresponsible family. We have to follow the rules." Old Madam pulled Yi Huanyan's hand. "Don't worry. Grandma will make the decision for you." Aunt Zhang noticed that Yi Huanyan's expression was a little strange. She tried to ask, "Miss Yan Yan, where's young master?" Yi Huanyan's expression froze. He'll be here in a moment." Seeing Yi Huanyan's hesitant expression, Old Madam immediately understood. She frowned and slammed the table. "This brat. I have to invite him here personally." As soon as she finished speaking, a cold voice sounded from the door. "Grandma, I need you to treat me to a meal." Am I not filial? Everyone in the room looked up and uniformly looked at the door. They saw Ling Han with a faint smile on his face as he walked toward the dining table. Old Madam glared at him and rebuked, "Brat, do you find it boring if you don't anger me for a day?" "Grandma, I wouldn't dare." Ling Han sat on the other side of Old Madam. "Aren't I here now? I've been back for a few days and I haven't seen you treat me like this. You're still in the mood." Old Madam raised her hand and pinched his face. "Are you asking for a beating?" Ling Han touched his face and avoided Old Madam's second attack. However, when he dodged, he caught a glimpse of Yi Huanyan's smile from the corner of his eye. He suddenly frowned. Chapter 155. After sitting down, he sneered, "That's right. Taking someone in is already a great kindness of our Ling family. How can her status and treatment be higher than mine? I'm your only grandson." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's face paled a little. The old lady scolded Ling Han, "What nonsense are you talking about? If you can give birth to a fat boy in your stomach, you will be treated like this." Ling Han was slightly stunned. He frowned and glanced at Yi Huanyan, then sneered, "Grandma, don't you watch the news? Grandson usually has so many women. If anyone could get pregnant so easily, then your courtyard would be very lively right now. At the very least, I still know the safety measures." After saying this, he seemed to be unsatisfied. He leaned back in his chair and sneered, "I'm afraid some people's wishful thinking is going to fall through. Stinking brat." The old lady couldn't stand it anymore. She raised her chopsticks and knocked Ling Han's head hard. "Who told you to talk nonsense? Don't give me any more food." Ling Han suddenly turned his body, and the old lady missed. She was so angry that her head was about to explode. However, he still had a smile on his face. He picked up a piece of braised pork and placed it in the old lady's bowl. "Grandma, eat the food." The old lady glared at him fiercely and comforted Yi Huanyan. "Yen Yen, ignore him. I only recognize you as my granddaughter-in-law." After saying this, the old lady's voice rose a few degrees. She turned around and glared at Ling Han fiercely. "As for those coquettish women on TV, if he dares to bring them home, he can try." Yi Huanyan forced a smile, but her heart was filled with mixed feelings. After dinner, Aunt Zhang accompanied the old lady to give out red packets for the new year to the servants who were preparing to go home. Yi Huanyan distributed the gifts to them and left happily. The big old house suddenly became much colder. The red lanterns at the entrance swayed in the wind. Yi Huanyan wrapped her coat tightly around herself and looked at them in a daze. In the 10 years since Jiang Mailan married her into the Ling family, they had spent the spring festival here every year. Perhaps it was because Ling Han's biological mother, Wen Qingwan, was too indifferent. Coupled with the fact that she was sickly and couldn't take care of everyone in the family, the old lady had always been dissatisfied with this daughter-in-law of hers. Apart from meeting her during festivals, there was almost no interaction between them. After Jiang Mailan married into the Ling family, she took care of everything in an orderly manner. She gave out endless gifts during the New Year and festivals. She could think of everything that the old madam wanted. She could also think of things that the old madam couldn't think of in the future. Therefore, Wan Qingwan's death didn't bring too much pain to the old madam. Instead, Jiang Mailan's arrival comforted her. This could be seen from her attitude towards Yi Huanyan. When Jiang Mailan and Ling Dongming passed away in a car accident, the old lady was really sad. Not only for her only son, but also for this daughter-in-law who was so considerate. Therefore, after that, she cared more about Yi Huanyan and treated her as a member of the Ling family from the bottom of her heart. But in the end, she wasn't a member of the Ling family. Yi Huanyan's sigh disappeared in the cold wind. The chill from the tip of her nose made her come back to her senses. "Miss Yen Yen, it's snowing. Let's go back in." Aunt Zhang's voice came from behind. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She turned around and smiled. "I'll go back in a while." "Oh, okay." Aunt Zhang smiled at her and went back into the house with her sleeves tucked in. While they were talking, the snowflakes became heavier. Heavy snow fell from the sky. It could be considered the heaviest snow since winter in Lanjiang City. Timely snow promised a good harvest. Khaki-colored sheepskin boots walked along the bluestone all the way to her bedroom. She passed by Ling Han's study. The lights were still on inside, and the snowflakes outside the window were exceptionally clear. Yi Huanyan stopped in front of his window for a while. She suddenly remembered how helpless she felt when it snowed 2 years ago. At the end of the previous year, Ling Dongming and Jiang Mailan passed away in a car accident. During the entire spring festival, the Ling family was busy with their funeral. Ling Han was even more busy with the company's equity dispute. The old madam was someone who had been through a lot, but she couldn't handle the loss of her son in her later years. She collapsed before New Year's Eve and was hospitalized for a long time before she recovered. At that time, everyone forgot that there was such a young lady in the Ling family. She stayed in the empty house every day. She didn't eat for several days until Ling Han came back from a business trip. He pulled her out of bed and forced her to drink a bowl of porridge. Later, the old madam was discharged from the hospital. She stayed in the Ling family mansion for more than half a year and was depressed all the time. After that, it was Ling Han who brought her back to the house in Fujin Garden. He would visit her every few days. It was his company that helped her slowly recover from the pain of losing her family. At the end of the previous year, it happened to be the anniversary of Ling Dongming and Jiang Mailan's death. He even accompanied her to the cemetery and said in front of the grave that he would take good care of her in the future. The snow came early that year, earlier than this year. She suddenly remembered that she hadn't gone to the cemetery this year. When Jiang Mailan and Ling Dongming were traveling in Bali on the anniversary of their deaths, she wasn't in the country. Later on, she returned to the country covered in injuries. She didn't want to go to the cemetery to see Jiang Mailan with such a hurt look, so she put it aside. Thinking of this, she raised her head and glanced at the study. She took a step forward, but when she thought of the conflict between Jiang Mailan and Wen Qingwan, she slowly retracted the step that she took. In the study, the temperature of the floor heating made the entire room and the outside world seem like two different worlds. Ling Han held a book in his hand and stood in front of the window. He frowned at the faint figure outside the door. She stopped in front of his door for a while, but in the end, she still left. There were a few times when he wanted to push the door open and ask her what she wanted. There were also a few times when he thought that if she came in, he would reluctantly not lose his temper with her. Just as she had said, the end of the year was approaching. No matter what grudges they had, he should let his grandmother have a good year. Late at night, a heavy snowfall covered Lanjiang City. When she woke up, her eyes were filled with white, and the world had changed. Yi Huanyan didn't sleep in. According to the old lady's habits, she had to start eating breakfast at 7 in the morning. Ling Han woke up late. When he rushed to the dining room with a yawn, he bumped into Yi Huanyan. She clutched her chest in shock and looked up at him in a daze. "Can't you watch where you're walking?" Ling Han frowned. "I'm sorry," she apologized softly, then turned to look at the old lady and walked out of the house with a gloomy expression. The old lady saw all of this. When Ling Han sat down to eat, she glared at him unhappily. "Can you treat Yan Yan better? This child doesn't have a mother and is here alone. It's quite pitiful. Since you agreed to live with Yan Yan, you can't let Yan Yan feel that she has to live under someone else's roof, right?" Ling Han looked up at the old lady. "You were the one who wanted me to live with her." Chapter 156. You Brat. The old lady was so angry that she had nothing to say. She simply ignored him. Aunt Zhang walked in with a bamboo basket. "Old madam, this should be enough." The old madam glanced inside the frame. "It's almost done. I'll let Yan Yan go back to her room and change into a thick set of clothes. You take these to the car first. It's cold today, so let her come back early." Ling Han's gaze fell on the bamboo basket. His gaze deepened. "What's that?" Aunt Zhang was about to leave. She was slightly stunned. "Oh, this is what Miss Yan Yan told me last night. She plans to go to the cemetery to visit Sir and Madam." Seeing that Ling Han's expression was not right, the old lady pondered in her heart. She waved her hand to let Aunt Zhang leave first. Then, she looked at Ling Han. "Logically speaking, you should also go. I heard that on the anniversary of the death this year, you and Yan Yan were both abroad." I couldn't say anything. I had already forgotten about this matter. Yan Yan is a thoughtful child. She still remembers. Ling Han lowered his head. His tone was cold. His hand holding the bowl of porridge was a little unnatural. When a person dies, there's nothing left. What's there to go? The old lady frowned. Yan Yan said that you're busy. It's rare for the company to be on vacation. You're still busy in the study every day, so I won't say much if you don't go. But Yan Yan is a sensible child. Don't hurt her heart. Hearing this, Ling Han's face darkened slightly. After a few seconds of silence, he put down the bowl. "Grandma, I'm full. I still have things to deal with. I'll go back first." Seeing Ling Han's hurried appearance, the old lady frowned. She had lived for so long. What had she not seen before? She had seen all kinds of storms. Perhaps she was not clear about the details of these matters between children, but she could see who cared about who at a glance. This grandson of his did not grow up by his parents' side, so his feelings were not that delicate. Perhaps many times, others could tell at a glance, but he was still unaware. When Ling Han reached the door, only Aunt Zhang was left there. Aunt Zhang turned around and saw Ling Han. She was slightly stunned. "Young master, why did you come out? Are you going somewhere?" Ling Han's face stiffened. "I have something to do, so I'm going out for a while. It's snowing so heavily. You have to be careful when driving." Aunt Zhang was a little worried. "It's almost New Year's Eve. What else can you do? It's better if you don't go out." Ling Han stared blankly in the direction Yi Huanyan's car had disappeared in for a while. As if he hadn't heard Aunt Zhang's advice, he turned around and went to the garage. It was snowing heavily. The cemetery in Lonjiang City was silent. "Uncle Zhang, you can wait for me here. You don't have to get out of the car." Before Yi Huanyan got out of the car, she instructed Uncle Zhang, who was driving. She carried the memorial items and walked into the cemetery alone. The cemetery in Lonjiang City was surrounded by mountains and rivers. It had a wide view. If it wasn't a cemetery, it would be a good place. Ling Dongming and Jiang Mailan's graves were close, but Yi Huanyan carried the basket and walked a few steps further away. She came to an old tombstone. The woman on it was in her early 40s. She looked very young, but her face was slightly pale. The tombstone was engraved with the words "The tomb of my beloved wife Wen Qingwan," erected by Ling Dongming. Yi Huanyan put down the basket and squatted in front of the tombstone. She took out a bouquet of dried flowers and placed it in front of the tombstone. "Auntie, I took the liberty of coming to see you. I know you might not want to see me, but I think I need to apologize. I accidentally read your diary and found out some things. Whether it's for the diary or for other things, I still have a lot to apologize for." She poured out some folded gold ingots from the basket and lit them with a lighter. She choked on the smoke and coughed non-stop. Her eyes were red. "I'm very sorry for what happened to my mother. I don't know why things turned out this way. My mother wasn't a bad person, at least not in my eyes. But she really destroyed your family. I'm really sad. If she was still alive, I could ask her why she did this to me face to face, but she's also gone." At this point, Yi Huanyan's voice was a little choked up. "Auntie, I hope that your spirit in heaven can bless Ling Han's health and try to let go of his hatred, whether it's towards me or my mother. I'm not trying to shirk any responsibility, but I just hope that he can live a good life." "You'll definitely think so too." The gold ingots flew into the sky in the heavy snow. Yi Huanyan stood up with the basket and bowed respectfully to the tombstone. Then, she turned around and left with the basket. Yi Huanyan rubbed her eyes and walked to Jiang Mailan's tombstone. When she saw the fresh daisies in front of the tombstone, she was slightly stunned. She looked around but didn't see anyone. She and Jiang Mailan didn't seem to have any close relatives. After so many years, she hadn't seen anyone other than her come to pay tribute to her. Perhaps it was a former customer? After all, Jiang Mailan was considered a well-known figure in the business world. She frowned in confusion but didn't think too much about it. She took a deep breath and lowered her head to wipe the photo on the tombstone. She said softly, "Mom, I'm here to see you." More than 10 meters away, under the cover of a big pine tree, a tall and straight man was facing Yi Huanyan's direction and frowning in confusion. The man was dressed in a black suit. Surprisingly, he had short silver-white hair. If he walked in a crowd, he would definitely stand out. There was a black earring on his left ear, which glowed faintly under the snow. His brows were deep and three-dimensional, and his brown eyes glowed with a sharp cold light. At this moment, his eyes were staring in Yi Huanyan's direction without moving. "Mom, I haven't been in a good state recently. Don't blame me for not coming to see you before. Didn't you tell me before that people should always look forward? But I don't seem to see any future. If you were still alive, you would definitely scold me for not being decisive at all." Yi Huanyan sighed and muttered as she burned the ingot. "I remember that when you were around, we got along very well with Uncle Ling's family. Every year during the New Year, we would warm up Nanao. Although Ling Han is always cold to me, I know that he always helps me in private. Didn't you say that before? If anyone can marry Ling Han in the future, she will definitely be a lucky person and will be very happy. I don't know why Ling Han and I have become like this. He said that it's because of you, so he's biased against me. At first, I blamed you a little, but you're my mother. Besides, if you didn't do those things, I wouldn't have met Ling Han. Sometimes, when I sleep at night, I think about these things when I close my eyes. I can't understand who's wrong. I clearly didn't do anything, but now, I can't blame anyone. Mom, do you think Ling Han will change his mind? When he calms down, can I really wait until the day he forgives me? Chapter 157. A black figure hurried over from the entrance of the cemetery and stood behind the silver-haired man. Just as he was about to speak, the silver-haired man turned around and glanced at him. He frowned and followed the silver-haired man's gaze to Zhang Mailan's tombstone. The girl in her 20s was wearing a gray woolen coat and a brown scarf. From the side, it could be seen that she had no makeup on. She looked rather exquisite and sweet. She squatted in front of the tombstone and curled up into a small ball, mumbling incoherently. After leaving the cemetery, the silver-haired man said in a deep voice, "Is this woman Zhang Mailan and Ling Doming's daughter?" The assistant behind him frowned. According to the investigation, the man on that tombstone is the second man Zhang Mailan married more than 10 years ago. She didn't have a child with this man called Ling Dongming. This woman should have been brought into the Ling family by him. She should have had a child with her ex-husband. A meaningful look flashed across the silver-haired man's eyes as he slowly spat out 4 words. Not necessarily. Yi Huanyan squatted in front of Zhang Mailan's tombstone until all the ingots were burned to ashes. Then, she rubbed her red eyes and stood up. After squatting for too long, her legs were a little numb. When she stood up, she staggered and almost fell. It was as if there was a hand supporting her. She turned around and looked at the tombstone. The tip of her nose twitched and tears fell uncontrollably. After she left, Ling Han walked out from the direction of Wen Qingwan's tombstone. He was wearing a black coat and his shoulders were covered in snow. He walked to Wen Qingwan's tombstone and lowered his head to look at the bouquet of dried flowers. Then, he raised his head to look at the 2 tombstones not far away. At this moment, he suddenly felt a little resentful. He resented Zhang Mailan for not being able to meet Ling Dongming after his mother passed away from cancer. He even resented Wen Qingwan for having the habit of writing a diary. Sometimes, people couldn't know too much. If they knew too much, it would be difficult for them to move forward. Yi Huanyan got into the car. The snow on her shoulders shook all over the car. With the heating, she sneezed a few times. Uncle Zhang, who was driving, asked with concern, "Miss Yan Yan, did you catch a cold?" "I'm fine. I just froze. I'll be fine after drinking some hot soup." Yi Huanyan waved her hand. She didn't care much about her body. Her recovery ability had been strong since she was young, and there were many major illnesses and minor disasters. She had suffered a lot with Zhang Mailan, who didn't care about anything, but she had survived. Her palms were aching from where she had slammed them against the door frame of the study yesterday. She lowered her head and glanced at the 3 crooked band-aids. The smile on her face suddenly became forced. When Yi Huanyan returned home, it was just in time for lunch. Ling Han followed closely behind her. He was covered in dust. No one knew where he came from, but he didn't ask for an invitation. He went back to his room and changed his clothes before taking the initiative to eat in the dining room. It was rare that he didn't say anything unpleasant. Even when the old lady mentioned their marriage, he just turned a deaf ear to it and frowned. He didn't refute it. This meal turned out to be one of the happiest meals they had in a while. The old lady also ate a lot. "If I can eat like this every meal in the future, I won't be so angry with you that my stomach hurts." The old lady pointed at Ling Han's nose, her face full of joy. Ling Han pretended to be unhappy. "Seriously, you have to scold me when you're happy. You don't care if my stomach hurts because of anger." The old lady raised her eyebrows with a mischievous expression. If your stomach hurts, someone else will feel sorry for you. What are you afraid of? Aunt Zhang, who was busy serving the dishes, laughed when she heard this. She looked at Yi Huanyan meaningfully. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. Her face inexplicably turned a little red, and she felt flustered. In the past, Ling Han would always say a few words of sarcasm to dispel the wishful thinking of Aunt Zhang. These servants in the old mansion had nothing to do all day and imagined him and Yi Huanyan living a loving life together. However, for some reason, he didn't say a word today. He only coughed twice and picked up food for the old lady. Grandma, eat more of this. The old lady raised her hand and turned Ling Han's wrist. A piece of fragrant fish fell steadily into Yi Huanyan's bowl. Yi Huanyan's face stiffened. She only heard the old lady laugh as if nothing had happened. Yen Yen, you eat more too. Ling Han withdrew his hand. When she looked up, she could only see that he was eating with his head down. She couldn't see his expression clearly. After the meal, the old lady went back to her room to take a nap. Yi Huanyan suddenly felt a headache when she stood up, so she also went back to her room to rest. Some of the servants in the old mansion left one after another. In the evening, only a girl named Xiao Qin was left to help Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zhang in the kitchen. At dinner, Yi Huanyan didn't go to the dining room to eat. Ling Han didn't say anything at first, but when he saw that the old lady was eating as usual, he asked in confusion halfway through the meal. Where is she? The old lady pretended to be puzzled. Who is she? Ling Han frowned and didn't answer. Now we have to wait for her to eat? Grandma, aren't you too indulgent with her? Hearing this, the old lady's face darkened. She put down her chopsticks and looked at Ling Han seriously. Is Yen Yen such a child who doesn't know the rules? Why don't you ask her why she's not here yet? She has a fever. She's sick. Ling Han was slightly stunned. He stopped holding the chopsticks in his hand. After lunch, Yi Huanyan said that she had a headache. Later, when Aunt Zhang went to her room with the ginger soup, she found that she had a fever. At this moment, she was still lying in the room and couldn't be woken up. Yen Yen, this child, has been in our Ling family for 10 years. I watched her grow up. I know her character best. She is devoted to you, but you bully her all the time. People only have one true heart. If you break it apart, next time you want it, you won't have it. The old lady's words echoed in Ling Han's mind. When he put down his chopsticks and came out of the dining room, his feet didn't seem to listen to him. Without any explanation, he directly broke into Yi Huanyan's bedroom. When he reached her bed, he found that he didn't know what to say. Under the embroidered dark green brocade quilt, there was a slightly pale little face. Her brows were tightly knitted, as if there was a sadness that couldn't be resolved. Ling Han's brows also furrowed. He slowly walked to the bedside and looked at that face. Suddenly, a hand reached out from under the quilt and grabbed his hand. He subconsciously wanted to pull it away, but found that although she was unconscious, her hand was very strong and refused to let go. She was so sick, but still so stubborn. He really didn't know who she learned this from. Ling Han helplessly allowed her to hold his hand. With his other hand, he lifted the blanket on her body towards her shoulders. After hesitating for a while, he slowly placed his hand on her forehead and touched it. Her fever was quite bad. He had already told her to wear more clothes when she went out. It was snowing heavily these 2 days, and there was no hurry to hold the memorial ceremony. Anyway, they had missed the time, so they couldn't wait until spring. Chapter 158. There was a calming incense burning in the room, and it was very warm. It made people sleepy. Ling Han sat by the bed and looked at Yi Huanyan's sleeping face. For a moment, he felt as if he was dreaming, as if it was an illusion. Back to 2 years ago, when Ling Dongming and Jiang Meilan had just met with an accident half a year ago. She was unable to recover from the setback and was in a daze every day. She spent most of her time lying in bed in a daze. Jiang Meilan's death was a blow to her. After all, she was her only family in this world. Aunt Zhang brought the porridge to Yi Huanyan's room. When she saw Ling Han holding Yi Huanyan's hand and sleeping by the bed, her eyes were filled with surprise. She did not send the porridge and turned around to run back to the old madam's room to tell the old madam this great news. One had to know that ever since the old madam suggested that the young master marry the young miss more than half a year ago, the young master had been cold to the young Mississippi. Every time they met, he would mock her fiercely, giving the old madam a headache. Yi Huanyan was in a daze. When she woke up, her palms were a little wet. With a slight movement, she woke up the person beside her. She slowly opened her eyes. Their eyes met, and the moment she opened her eyes, she met Ling Han's eyes. At this moment, he seemed to be still asleep and was a little drowsy. She was stunned and vaguely felt that she was dreaming. Ling Han sat up and said coldly, "How long are you going to hold my hand for?" Her entire body stiffened and she suddenly let go of her hand. Her palms were sweaty. So it wasn't a dream. She got up from the bed and shrunk her shoulders. Her long hair draped over her shoulders as she asked in confusion, "Why are you here?" Ling Han's eyes moved slightly. He stood up and moved his wrist. He said calmly, "I'm looking for something." "Looking for something?" Yi Huanyan leaned against the headboard and became more and more puzzled. "Do you have anything in my room?" Ling Han was silent for 2 seconds. "You haven't returned the 2 books you borrowed from me last time." Yi Huanyan's expression suddenly tightened. "Those 2 books? Sex analysis?" Thinking of those 2 books, the corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. Those 2 books. I didn't bring them." "Wait, you need them urgently?" After asking the last question, Yi Huanyan really wanted to slap herself in the face. How could that kind of book be urgently needed? Sure enough, a meaningful look appeared on Ling Han's face as he looked deeply at her. "Urgent? What I mean is..." Yi Huanyan was a little incoherent. After a while, she said, "I'll get it for you when I get back after the Spring Festival." Ling Han's expression returned to normal. "I'm going to call Aunt Zhang," he said as he walked towards the door. Yi Huanyan lowered her head and looked at her palm. It was still warm. She liked the old mansion. When they were at the old mansion, Ling Han's temper was much more restrained. Even if he still mocked her in front of Grandma, he wouldn't fly into a rage at any time and punish her. In this place, it seemed that no matter what she did, there would always be a period of time when she could pretend to coexist peacefully with him, deceiving others and herself. After leaving Yi Huanyan's room, Ling Han went to the gatehouse to call Aunt Zhang, but found that Aunt Zhang and Xiao Qin's room had turned off the lights. All the servants in the old mansion had left, and he couldn't find them at the moment. He frowned and looked back at Yi Huanyan's room, then turned and walked towards the kitchen. When Ling Han came back, Yi Huanyan was sitting on the bed taking a nap. When she heard the door open, her whole body trembled and she suddenly woke up. When she saw Ling Han, she was stunned and looked up at the clock on the wall. It was already past 12. A bowl of porridge was placed by the bed. Ling Han looked at her expressionlessly. "Aunt Zhang asked me to bring it over." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She raised her hand and picked up the bowl of porridge. She took a sip and pursed her lips. "Not to your taste?" Ling Han frowned. Yi Huanyan was stunned and quickly shook her head. "No." Seeing her troubled expression, Ling Han frowned and asked, "If you don't like it, just say so. I'll ask Aunt Zhang to make it again." No. Yi Huanyan lowered her head and looked at the porridge. "It's a little bland." Ling Han's face darkened and he said in annoyance, "Rice porridge, if it's not bland, can it be salty?" Yi Huanyan shrank her neck and said softly, "Don't you have pickled radishes?" Ling Han was slightly stunned. After a while, he glanced at her and said, "Eat it or leave it." Not long after, he carried a small stack of pickled radishes and placed it heavily on the bedside table. He said coldly, "How troublesome." "Thank you." Her voice was softer than a mosquito. Ling Han raised his chin and looked down at her condescendingly. He turned around and walked out of the door. "Eat it yourself. I still have something to do. I don't have time to be ordered around by you." Looking at his back, Yi Huanyan's eyes revealed a hint of a smile. The next morning, Yi Huanyan had just woken up. She got out of bed and drank water in the room. Aunt Zhang came to the room to check. When she saw her get out of bed, she walked up to her and touched her forehead. "Your fever is gone. That's good. Do you want to eat something?" Yi Huanyan giggled. "I want to eat Aunt Zhang's sesame glutinous rice balls." "Little greedy cat, you saw the glutinous rice balls in the kitchen yesterday morning, didn't you?" Aunt Zhang scratched her nose and smiled very lovingly. "Okay, Aunt Zhang will cook glutinous rice balls for you now. You want to eat 6 of them. 6 of them will be smooth. Then I can't eat 8 of them." "Of course, that's good. 8 of them will be smooth. But it's better for girls to be smooth. You don't have to be too smooth." Aunt Zhang smiled and turned around. She took the kettle on the table and was about to go to the kitchen to boil water. When she turned around, she saw the bowl and plate on the bedside table and was slightly stunned. "Miss, when did this bowl and plate come?" Yi Huanyan was drinking water. She glanced at it when she heard that. "Last night. Didn't you ask Ling Han to bring it over?" Aunt Zhang's eyes deepened a little, and then she smiled happily. No wonder. No wonder Xiao Qin asked her if she had cooked porridge last night when she came back from making breakfast. Yi Huanyan looked confused. "No wonder what? Aunt Zhang?" Aunt Zhang cleaned up the dishes and smiled as she walked. Nothing. Miss Yan Yan, you haven't completely recovered from your cold. Just stay in the room and don't come out. The glutinous rice balls will be ready soon. I'll get someone to bring them in." Yi Huanyan nodded in confusion. She didn't understand why Aunt Zhang was grumbling so early in the morning and suddenly smiling. Ling Han arrived at the dining room on time for breakfast. Before his but touched the stool, Aunt Zhang stuffed a wooden lunchbox into his hand. "Young master, Miss Yan Yan's breakfast and yours are here. Please send it to Mrs. Room. You can eat with her while you're at it." Ling Han frowned when he heard that. "Me? I'll send it? Then what are you going to do, Aunt Zhang?" Old Madame Yang raised her eyebrows and blinked at Aunt Zhang. She coughed dryly. "Aunt Zhang has to go back to her hometown tonight. Don't you have time to pack? You can just send it to Yan Yan. Do you want me, an old bag of bones, to send food to Yan Yan?" Aunt Zhang understood and nodded. "Young master, I have to pack. Xiao Qin is the only one at home. I have to accompany old madam. You must be tired." Chapter 159. Yi Huanyan was rummaging through the suitcase in her room for a set of cups for her grandmother when she heard the door open behind her. She assumed that Aunt Zhang was here to bring her lunch, so she acted as though she had seen her savior. She asked as she rummaged through the suitcase. "Aunt Zhang, did you put all the things I brought back in the living room on the day I came back? There's a set of cups for me." She turned around. The moment she saw Ling Han, her voice stopped abruptly. Their eyes met, and there was a hint of awkwardness in the air. "Aunt Zhang is going home, so." Before she could finish her explanation, Ling Han suddenly did not feel like explaining anymore. He frowned and put down the lunchbox. "If you're feeling better, go out and eat by yourself. Don't make people bring you food. It's so troublesome." Although he said those words in a bad mood, Yi Huanyan felt a tinge of warmth in her heart when she saw the lunchbox. She stood up and walked over to the dining table. Ling Han was taking out a big bowl of glutinous rice balls and a few side dishes from the lunchbox. There were 2 sets of cutlery. Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. "You're eating here too?" Ling Han looked up at her and said in a bad mood, "You don't have to walk around. I don't have that much time. I'll take it back after I'm done eating." Yi Huanyan replied softly, "Okay." Aunt Zhang's sesame glutinous rice balls were different from the sweet and greasy ones outside. She would not feel sick of them even if she ate them all night. Moreover, she had personally pickled radishes and pickled cucumbers. They were crunchy and refreshing. I really don't know where Aunt Zhang learned how to cook so well. These glutinous rice balls taste so different from the ones outside, Yi Huanyan muttered softly. She lowered her head and carefully tasted the sesame filling. They were the only two people in the room. Regardless of whether she was talking to herself or to Ling Han, she only had one goal: to ease the atmosphere. After returning to Lanjiang City from Shanghai, the two of them rarely spent time alone, let alone speak a few words. Ling Han put the glutinous rice ball in his spoon into his mouth, tasted it, and said calmly, "I added plum blossoms and licorice." Yi Huanyan looked up at him. When she saw Ling Han's expressionless face, she thought she was hallucinating. She was stunned for a few seconds. When she came back to her senses, she quickly tasted it. "It seems to be true." "What do you mean?" Ling Han glanced at her impatiently. "If I say so, then so be it." Yi Huanyan swallowed the glutinous rice ball in her mouth and pursed her lips. "The taste is very faint." "How can you tell? Who told you I tasted it?" Ling Han said casually, "When Aunt Zhang was making the stuffing, I happened to pass by the kitchen." As for whether it was a coincidence or not, there was no need to explain it to Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan nodded blankly. She felt that he had blocked the topic again. Just like what Ji Xiaoye had said, for people like Ling Han, he's a conversation stopper. He's high and mighty, as if silence is the only way to get along with him. Unable to find a topic to talk about, she could only remain silent. The big bowl of glutinous rice balls was almost empty. The room was still silent. After being silent for a long time, Yi Huanyan was used to this feeling. It did not seem to be uncomfortable. Compared to talking to Ling Han with trepidation and accidentally offending him, this silence seemed to make her feel more at ease. After a while, a cold voice sounded in the room. It was Ling Han who spoke first. "Uncle and his family are coming back tomorrow. We don't have enough manpower this year, so there's no need to clean the west courtyard. When they come back, they will directly live with Grandma." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. "Isn't that bad?" The west courtyard of the Gu mansion was Ling Han's uncle, Ling Dongyu's house. Although the family had migrated to the United States, they would come back every year for 10 days to half a month during the Lunar New Year. This was also the busiest time of the Gu mansion. Although they did not stay for long, this was an annual habit. If they suddenly changed, Yi Huanyan was worried that they would be unhappy. "It's okay. They only come back for half a month every year. There's no need to arrange for such a big courtyard to be cleaned. Besides, there's really no one to clean this year." In the past, there were many people who accompanied the old madam in the Gu mansion. At the beginning of this year, there was a servant who was not clean and stole the old madam's dowry. When the old madam found out, she was angry and simply laid off more than half of the servants and maids in the Gu mansion. In addition, Aunt Zhang and Uncle Zhang had returned to their hometown, so there was no one to clean the west courtyard. It would be more troublesome if they knocked into something and broke it. Since Ling Han said so, Yi Huanyan could not refute. After all, she was an outsider. She was just looking forward to the return of Ling Dongyu's family. Unlike Ling Han's grandfather, Ling Han's second grandfather had 3 daughters and 1 son. Ling Dongyu was the youngest son and was the only child in the west courtyard. When he was 10 years old, his second grandfather passed away. The west courtyard's elder sister took her mother and younger brother and emigrated abroad. It had been more than 20 years since then. Although Ling Dongyu was Ling Han's uncle, he was actually only a few years older than Ling Han. According to the old madam, Ling Dongyu did not study well in high school in the United States and got married early. Now, he already had a son and a daughter. His oldest son was 15 years old and was almost the same age as his father. 2 days ago, Uncle called and said that this year, Auntie will come back with him and bring the little kid. Ling Han seemed to be suddenly willing to talk to her and even told her such news. Yi Huanyan exclaimed, "Auntie will bring the little kid back?" Ling Dongyu's youngest son was born last year. Because of this, he did not bring his wife, Chris, back the year before and the year before. Ling Dongyu would occasionally send pictures and videos of his son to the whole family, as if he was presenting a treasure. Yi Huanyan was no exception. This little kid was still in his swaddling clothes and could be said to be very cute. What's so exciting about a little kid? Ling Han looked at her with disdain. Not only that annoying little kid, but also Ling Zhan, Ling Li, and Ling Shui. They did not sign up for the summer camp this year and will all come back. Some of them will be busy for you. When she heard one of the names, the smile on Yi Huanyan's face froze a little. Ling Li is coming back too. Ling Dongyu had many children in his family and most of them were mild-tempered. His eldest son, Ling Zhan, was 15 years old. Because he was the first son and because he caused trouble in high school, the family doted on him, but they did not spoil him. After all, there was second young mistress, who was also from a scholarly family, who raised him very gently and elegantly. He was not at all like those brats overseas. Ling Shui, who was 10 years old, was very innocent and pure. She was not a troublesome little girl. Only this Ling Li, the second daughter, Ling Li, was 13 years old. Perhaps it was because of this name, she was born to be a big devil. Probably because she had a mild-tempered older brother before her, when she was born, she made threatening gestures. For the past 10 years, during the half-month when she came back after the New Year, she would torment Yi Huanyan to death. Ling Li was Ling Han's die-hard fan. Chapter 160. Before the New Year, the mall was still open. After learning that Ling Dongyu's family was coming back, Yi Huanyan went shopping in the city that afternoon and bought everyone's New Year gifts. When she got home, it was almost dark. There was always a strong wind before New Year's Eve in Lonjiang City. When she got home, the two big lanterns at the door were swayed by the wind, and half of the door couplet was blown away by the wind. Uncle Zhang and Auntie Zhang were anxious. Both of them were old, and it looked like they were planning to climb up and down to hang the lanterns. Yi Huanyan got out of the car and hurriedly stopped them. Uncle Zhang, you're already so old. Do you still think you can climb so high? It's New Year's Eve. Don't make trouble. Yi Huanyan handed the things in her hand to Xiao Qin and asked her to take them back. Then she helped Uncle Zhang down the ladder. Okay, don't you still have to catch the train? Hurry up and go. Otherwise, you won't be able to get a taxi when everyone goes home for New Year's Eve. Aunt Zhang frowned while holding the lantern. Then this lantern. I'll see what I can do. Yi Huanyan took the lantern from Aunt Zhang. Don't worry about this. I'll take care of it, Aunt Zhang. Aunt Zhang and Uncle Zhang took their luggage from the gatehouse and got into the taxi that Yi Huanyan just got in. Before leaving, Yi Huanyan waved at the people in the taxi. Uncle Zhang, Aunt Zhang, Happy New Year. Hey, Miss Yen Yen, you too. Aunt Zhang and Uncle Zhang's voices came from the taxi. They seemed reluctant to leave. After sending off Aunt Zhang and Uncle Zhang, Yi Huanyan held a big red lantern and looked up at the door that was almost twice her height. She took a deep breath. She should be able to hang this lantern, right? In the backyard living room. Ling Han had just sat down at the dining table with the old lady when he saw Xiao Qin pass by the door with bags of various sizes in her hands. She hurried towards the eastern courtyard. Ling Han stopped her and said, "Didn't I ask you to pick up Yi Huanyan from the entrance? Why are you back?" Xiao Qin turned around and waved the bags in her hands. "Mrs. Back. She asked me to bring the things to her room first." Hearing this, the old lady stood up and asked, "Where is she?" "At the entrance." The lantern at the entrance was blown down by the wind. "Miss asked me to help her hang up the lantern after I put down the things." "Hanging lanterns? She's just a girl, how can she do that?" Before his voice died away, Ling Han's figure had already disappeared through the door. The old lady looked thoughtfully at the figure walking towards the front yard in a hurry. Her worried expression disappeared and a comforting smile appeared on her face. Under the same roof, after interacting with each other for a long time, feelings would develop over time. In front of the main gate of the mausoleum, a wooden ladder leaned against the wall. Yi Huanyan held the lantern in one hand and climbed up the ladder with the other. The ladder swayed as if it could be blown down by the wind at any time. She took a deep breath and swallowed hard to gather her courage. She braced herself and stepped on it again. When she reached the highest point, she reached out to grab the rope to hang the lantern. However, the rope was twisted by the wind and she could not reach it. She remembered that her head was covered in sweat. In her anxiety, she looked down and saw that she was more than 3 meters above the ground. She felt dizzy. She quickly raised her head and did not dare to look down again. She muttered to herself, "When I was young, I was never afraid of climbing trees and mountains. It's just a 3-meter door, why am I so flustered? Is it true that the older I get, the more I value my life?" Just as she was thinking, a cold voice suddenly sounded from below. "Yi Huanyan, what are you doing? Do you want to die?" Hearing this angry rebuke, her hand slipped and the lantern fell from her hand. It was blown far away by the wind. She suddenly cried out in alarm and her whole body trembled. She was so scared that she hugged the ladder tightly. The ladder, which did not look sturdy to begin with, also shook twice. She was so scared that her whole body trembled. "Don't move." The familiar voice seemed to tremble, and the swaying ladder suddenly stopped moving. After the panic, Yi Huanyan carefully looked down. Ling Han was holding the ladder and looking at her nervously. Now that the ladder was stable, Yi Huanyan was still scared, but she was safe. Ling Han's face turned green. "Why aren't you coming down?" Yi Huanyan swallowed a mouthful of saliva and hugged the ladder tightly, not daring to let go. She said guiltily, I can't go down." "What do you mean you can't go down? How did you go up? How did you come down?" My legs are weak." In the bleak cold wind, the two of them were separated by the length of the ladder. The air seemed to have been silent for a century. After a while, Ling Han took a deep breath and tried to calm his angry heart. He looked up at Yi Huanyan. "Take a deep breath, then try to move your left leg. Move it down a little." Yi Huanyan felt that at this moment, other than her hands that were hugging the ladder tightly, there was not a single part of her body that belonged to her. She was so nervous that she was numb. Hearing this, she was stunned for a few seconds and was so nervous that she was about to cry. "Left leg. Which side is left?" "Whichever leg you want. Move whichever leg you can." I can't move." Ling Han's face darkened and he said in a muffled voice, "Yi Huanyan, I'll count to 3. If you don't move, I'll flip the ladder over. If you break your leg, I'll send you to the hospital and let you stay in the hospital alone for the new year." "Hey, don't." I'll move." Yi Huanyan sniffed and tried to find a trace of feeling. She moved her right leg and slowly moved it down a step. "Yes, just like that. Go down a little more. Okay, you've reached the ladder. Step on it." When her right leg stepped on the next step, Yi Huanyan felt that she was already covered in sweat. Then it was her left leg. Then it was her right leg. Every step seemed to use up all the strength in her body. Ling Han stood at the bottom. After seeing her steadily step on the ladder a few times, he slowly exhaled. After a few steps, Yi Huanyan opened her eyes and slowly lowered her head to see how far she was. When she lowered her head, the world spun. Her feet slipped. "Ah!" A woman's scream mixed with a cold wind sounded at the entrance of the Ling family's old mansion. The only servant left in the house, Xiao Qin, had just stepped out of the door when she saw such a scene. Her entire face froze. At this moment, Yi Huanyan fell into Ling Han's arms. She hugged Ling Han's neck tightly and refused to let go. Her eyes were closed tightly as she nestled in his arms. Her chest rose and fell violently as if she had just survived an inhumane massacre. Ling Han raised his head and looked at the wooden ladder beam in front of him where one of her feet had suddenly slipped. It was less than half a meter from the ground. His face froze slightly, and a trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. After being stunned for a few seconds, he finally raised his hand and patted her back. This scene was familiar. In the past 10 years, Yi Huanyan had climbed every tree in the old mansion, picked jujubes from the trees, dug out bird nests, destroyed the hornet's nest that had stung the new servant, and also saved the little kitten that had climbed up the tree and didn't know how to get down. Chapter 161. The year the college entrance exam ended, on the afternoon of the day of university registration, Ling Han returned from a business trip and hurried back to the old mansion. She was about to leave and had already packed her luggage. When she arrived at the old mansion, she saw a circle of servants surrounding the century-old tree in the yard, nervously looking at the top of the tree. Seeing that the young master had returned, the servants consciously made a path for him. When he looked up, he saw Yi Huanyan climbing on the tree trunk, holding a shivering little white cat in her hands. She was busy handing it to the servant below. "Hey, help me catch it." After putting down the white cat, she finally saw Ling Han in the crowd. The hot summer wind blew through the leaves, rustling them. It blew up her messy bangs, the smile on her face, and her laughter that sounded like a silver bell was blown up. "Brother Ling Han, you're climbing so high. Do you want to go to heaven?" Ling Han glanced at her in annoyance. Although he scolded her, he couldn't help but reach out his arms to her. His eyes were full of helplessness. In the blink of an eye, it was already 8 years ago. Ling Han looked at the slightly swaying red rope at the top of the ladder and suddenly became a little absent-minded. The cold wind chilled the sweat on his body. The rise and fall of his chest gradually calmed down. Yi Huanyan suddenly realized something and her whole body stiffened. Ling Han also came back to his senses. "Let go when you're done hugging." A cold voice sounded in her ears. She was slightly stunned and quickly let go of her arms around his neck. After she steadied herself, she turned around and saw Xiao Qin standing at the gate with a stunned expression. "I'll go pick up the lantern." Xiao Qin lowered her head with a red face and ran far away with the cold wind. She picked up the red lantern that had been blown into the flower bed by the wind. Yi Huanyan lowered her head in embarrassment and didn't know what to say. After a while, she heard Ling Han's voice. "Why aren't you holding the ladder?" She raised her head and realized that at some point in time, Ling Han had already taken the lantern from Xiao Qin's hands and was preparing to climb up the ladder. "Oh." She quickly turned around and steadied herself on the ladder. The big red lanterns are hung on the doorframe again. At the same time, Xiao Qin has also pasted the couplet on the door. "The sky is getting dark." Looking at the bright red color on the door, she finally feels that this cold old house has some New Year's atmosphere. After the reunion dinner, the old lady gave Yi Huanyan a red packet. She looked at the two people in front of her with a smile on her face. Ling Han curled his lips. "How old are you? Why are you still taking red packets? This is New Year's money." The old madam corrected, "1 year at a time. Older people want their children to grow slower. His brain isn't good to begin with. If he presses any further, he'll lose his brain." Hearing this, the smile on Yi Huanyan's face froze. She looked up at him, embarrassed. The old lady glanced at Ling Han. "Stinking brat, you're always talking nonsense. I think you don't want your New Year's money. I'll give it all to Yen Yen." Sigh. Without waiting for Ling Han to refute, the old lady pulled out another red packet from behind her like a magic trick and stuffed it into Yi Huanyan's hand. She patted the back of her hand lovingly and did not forget to turn around and roll her eyes at Ling Han. "Keep it well. I'm not giving it to him." Ling Han was speechless. Looking at his deflated expression, Yi Huanyan's face finally showed a trace of a smile again. She nodded heavily. "Thank you, Grandma." It was late at night. The old lady was old, so she did not have the habit of staying up late. She went to bed early. Ling Han and Yi Huanyan also went back to their own rooms. Although there were not many people living in the old district, the sound of firecrackers continued from 12 o'clock. Like every New Year's Eve, the sound of firecrackers was so noisy that people could not sleep. In the end, they could not resist the sleepiness and fell asleep amid the sound of firecrackers. The next morning, Yi Huanyan woke up early and went to the old lady's room to pay her New Year's greetings. The old lady happily put on the new clothes Yi Huanyan bought for her and repeatedly praised her for her good taste. Xiao Qin also received a big red packet and said some auspicious words. Ling Han drove to the airport early in the morning. Your uncle and the others came back at this time in the past, but they couldn't get a taxi at the airport. Yi Huanyan supported the old lady in the living room to wait for her uncle's family, who only came back once a year. After breakfast, they chatted in the courtyard. Is second young mistress coming back this year? She hasn't been in good health these past 2 years. She was not comfortable traveling back and forth, so she didn't come back. She said that she was going to spend the holiday at first young mistress's house. Second young mistress is blessed to have so many children and grandchildren. Speaking of this, the old lady paused and suddenly sighed. She's a blessed person, unlike me. The old lady only had one son, Ling Dongming. It was said that she had given birth to 2 children before, but both of them died young. When Ling Dongming was born, it was difficult to give birth. After that, she caught a cold and couldn't have another child. She didn't expect that her only son, who she had raised for more than 40 years, would be the one to send him off. She lost her husband in her middle age and her son in her later years. If the old lady hadn't been a strong person, she probably wouldn't have been able to survive. Yi Huanyan knew that she had said something wrong and reminded the old lady of sad things, so she felt a little sad. Grandma, your good fortune is still to come. Don't you still have a grandson? Ling Han is now one of the top business tycoons in Lonjiang City. Everyone knows his name. There will definitely be great fortune for you to enjoy in the future. These were all comforting words. After saying it a lot, people would believe it. The old lady had lived for more than half of her life, so she knew better than anyone. She had heard many comforting words, but in the end, she still had to be open-minded. She smiled. I'm not asking for great fortune. My only wish now is that you and Ling Han can give birth to a great-grandson for me to see. At the mention of this, Yi Huanyan's face slightly stiffened. She forced a smile, but didn't know what to say in response. She had no idea how to cross the gap between her and Ling Han. She could only take one step at a time. As they spoke, the sound of a car driving past came from the front yard. Not long after, there was a burst of noise. Naneo's laughter came from adults and children. The whole yard seemed to be lively all of a sudden. It's Uncle's family. Yi Huanyan's eyes lit up. The old lady stopped in her tracks and smiled when she heard that. Isn't that so? I heard Ling Li's voice. Who is she arguing with again? The first to appear at the entrance of the yard was Ling Dongyu's eldest son, Ling Zhan. He was already 1.8 meters tall at the age of 15, and he was more eye-catching than the average teenager. He had inherited his mother's delicate features. He was carrying things and walking towards the living room. When he got closer, he gave the old lady a New Year's greeting. Happy New Year. I wish you all the best. The old lady naturally wanted to give him a big red packet. He didn't refuse. After receiving it, he turned around and greeted Yi Huanyan. Sister Yan Yan. Happy New Year. Long time no see. This elegant and gentle appearance was not like Ling Dongyu's sloppy father. His personality was exactly the same as Ling Dongming's. Yi Huanyan smiled slightly and nodded. Yes, it's been a long time. I wish you success in your studies and success in everything. While they were talking, a large group of people rushed into the front yard. Ling Li was chasing after Ling Shui from the front yard, shouting that he would beat his own sister to death. Behind him was Chris, who was holding a baby in his hand. The scene could be said to be quite lively. Chapter 162. Ling Shui, watch how I catch you and break your legs. When she heard this rough and fierce voice, Yi Huanyan's face slightly stiffened. She couldn't help but hold her forehead. She couldn't help but want to go back to her room and not come out. In the direction of the front door, a tall girl wearing a black suit and a pair of leather boots was crazily chasing after her biological sister with a snowball in her hand. Pa! Before Yi Huanyan could come back to her senses, she felt a burning pain on her forehead, followed by a chill that spread throughout her body. A big snowball shattered on her face. If it wasn't for Ling Zhan's quick reflexes, this fierce attack would have made her fall flat on her face. In front of her, Ling Shui, who was wearing a red suit, was squatting on the ground with her hands on her head. 2 meters behind her was Ling Li, who hadn't had time to retract her hand. The snowball in her hand had already flown out 2 seconds ago, smashing into Yi Huanyan's face. Caught off guard, the annual meeting of the Devil Sisters unfolded. Ling Li was Yi Huanyan's annual nightmare. There was no doubt about this. Since she had just entered the Ling family 10 years ago, during the new year, the 3-year-old Ling Li gave the 17-year-old Yi Huanyan a head-on blow. At that time, she was still a child and couldn't even walk properly. According to the elders in the family, no matter what the younger sister did, the older sister had to tolerate it. Therefore, Yi Huanyan could only tolerate this younger sister of hers. Whether it was peeing on her body, pulling her hair, or other bad things. Originally, she thought that it would be better when she got older. However, as she grew older, this younger sister of hers would steal the snake's nest in the old house in the winter and secretly put the hibernating snake's egg into Yi Huanyan's bedroom. This scared Yi Huanyan so much that she had nightmares for the whole year. Ling Li was a senior fan of Ling Han and a worshipper for 10,000 years. Naturally, she couldn't accept this annual meeting. Yi Huanyan, who was always by Ling Han's side, seemed to have become her archenemy. Every new year, she would be tortured by her until she shed a layer of skin. Ling Zhan scolded Ling Li while using a handkerchief to help Yi Huanyan clean up her red face. Yi Huanyan saw the black shadow approaching and could already feel the thick malice. Ling Li, Ling Shui, come over and apologize. What are you two doing? Didn't you say that you would behave when you came back? Ling Zhan's voice rang in her ears. No need. No need to apologize. Yi Huanyan instinctively took a step back and said embarrassedly, I was just kidding. 2 deep meanings, one black and one red, walked over from the snow. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry. The voice belonged to Ling Li. Yi Huanyan didn't react for a moment. She stared blankly at the young girl in front of her, who had grown into a slender and elegant girl. She couldn't believe that such words could come out of the mouth of this young girl who was like a devil incarnate. Although the tone of the apology was a little stiff and awkward, it didn't seem like she was unwilling. Ling Shui, apologize. She even pulled on the shoulder of her younger sister beside her. Her expression was serious, just like an older sister. The 10-year-old girl beside her was half a shoulder shorter than Ling Li. She was wearing a very festive red cotton-padded jacket. She stuck out her tongue and gave Yi Huanyan an apologetic smile. Sister Yan Yan, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were in front. I was just avoiding my sister's pursuit. They hadn't seen each other for almost 2 years. The last time they met was before the New Year 2 years ago at Ling Dongming and Jiang Mailan's funeral. Ling Li stood very far away and didn't tease her. She looked at her with pity. At that time, she was in pain and didn't care about many relatives and friends. Only this gaze left a deep impression on her. Last New Year, the 2 sisters joined the training camp in America, so they didn't come back. This time, it had been more than 2 years. Ling Li seemed to be different from the nightmare girl in her memory. Many things seemed to have changed. Yi Huanyan was stunned. She only reacted when she heard Ling Dongyu's voice in the courtyard. Did Ling Li bully Yan Yan again? Ling Zhan, you should take good care of your sister. There was a hint of anger between Ling Dongyu's delicate brows, and she rushed over. This girl, if I don't beat her, she'll go to the roof and uncover the tiles. Yi Huanyan quickly waved her hand. No, I'm just kidding. The old madam also tried to smooth things over. Behind them, Chris carried the little bean and walked over with a smile on his face. In an instant, the focus of the entire courtyard was shifted. The old madam happily took the little bean from Chris. "Oh, you're so heavy. Let Ma give you a big red packet." The little bean giggled, and the living room instantly became lively. Xiao Qin brought Ling Dongyu's family to the tidied-up rooms in the courtyard to settle down. Yi Huanyan went back to the house to take the gifts for everyone and deliver them to each room. Finally, she sent them to Ling Li's room. Before entering the room, she knocked on the door. Seeing that it was Yi Huanyan, Ling Li's face was slightly stunned. "What's the matter?" Yi Huanyan put down the huge skateboard in her hand. "I heard from Ling Han that you've been learning to skateboard recently. This is for you." Ling Li glanced at the fancy skateboard. "It's such a big thing, we can't take it with us when we go back. The shipping fee is more than a skateboard." However, when she saw Yi Huanyan, she suddenly stopped talking and paused for a few seconds. "But it's not bad to play here for half a month." "Thank you. You're welcome." Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment. She casually exchanged a few words and turned to leave. "Sigh, I'm sorry for what happened to uncle and aunt." Ling Li's voice came from behind. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment. She finally realized that Ling Li's change in attitude towards her was because of the deaths of Ling Dongming and Jiang Mailan 2 years ago. She frowned and turned to look at Ling Li. "Is this the reason why your attitude towards me suddenly changed?" Ling Li's expression was a little unnatural. She turned her head to avoid Yi Huanyan's gaze. "I admit that my attitude towards you wasn't very good in the past. My brother said that you didn't have a mommy, so I should take care of your emotions. Last New Year, I also thought that you might be in a better mood if you didn't see me, so I didn't come back. However, I really like China. In the future, I'm going back to China. I can't never come back, so I think that at most, we should coexist peacefully." Seeing her serious expression, Yi Huanyan was suddenly amused. "Coexist peacefully?" Ling Li looked up at her. "Of course, the prerequisite is that you stay away from my brother Ling Han. At least in front of me." After all, she was still a teenage girl. Her words were more or less childish. Yi Huanyan suddenly felt that this nightmarish sister didn't seem to be that scary. She couldn't help but tease. "You're not going to marry Ling Han?" When this girl was young, she had always clamored to marry Ling Han when she grew up. At this point, Ling Li suddenly raised her head and said angrily, "My mommy told me that relatives can't marry each other. The children they give birth to will also have congenital deformities." Yi Huanyan's expression stiffened as she said embarrassedly, "You've really considered this seriously?" Chapter 163. Turning hostility into friendship with Ling Li was one of Yi Huanyan's gains during this spring festival. However, this gain didn't seem to last for more than a few days. Ling Li returned to her original appearance, baring her fangs and brandishing her claws in the yard. Although she didn't prank her by moving the snake's nest into her room, she still caused her a lot of trouble. What happened to taking care of her grief of losing her parents? However, this was also good for Yi Huanyan. Facing the pitiful gaze of the little girl younger than her made her feel uncomfortable. After the second day of the Lunar New Year, Ling Han had to go to Wen Qingwan's parents' house to stay for a while. Yi Huanyan was the only one left in the old house to take care of the children. Ling Li was a little crazy who couldn't be locked up. After Ling Han left, she quickly got rid of the burden of being an idol. In just 3 days, she had already climbed all the trees in the old house with her sister Ling Shui. When the stray cats around saw her, they were so scared that they took a detour. Yi Huanyan was afraid that if she continued to make trouble, she would climb the wall and go to other people's houses to make trouble. The neighbors nearby would come and complain, making the whole family unable to have a good spring festival. Thus, she decided to take the 2 sisters downtown today. In the large shopping mall in the city center, Ling Shui was wearing a fiery red cotton-padded jacket, like a small fireball. At this time, she was holding a huge ice cream ball in her hand and pointing at the huge poster in the mall. "Sister, this woman is that, the one on TV, the one who has a scandal with brother Ling Han." Ling Li frowned at the woman on the poster, then turned to look at Yi Huanyan and rolled her eyes in disdain. Yi Huanyan was wearing a beige coat and was paying the bill at the roasted sausage shop. From Ling Li's angle, she found that she didn't put on any makeup at all. Compared to the woman on the poster, no man would like her. Yi Huanyan came back after paying the bill and handed Ling Li and Ling Shui a roasted sausage each. "Let's go. We'll walk around for a while and then I'll take you to eat. There's a Japanese restaurant here that's pretty good." Ling Li glanced at the poster and pretended to be nonchalant. "Hey, Yi Huanyan, this woman called Shang Anren is an artist from Brother Ling Han's company, right?" Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She followed Ling Li's gaze and saw the huge poster in the center of the mall. A strange emotion flashed through her eyes. "Yeah, why? Are any of you her fans?" Hearing this, Ling Li laughed. "How is that possible? Are we crazy? Like this kind of woman? She doesn't look like she's capable at all. She's just a pretty face." Hearing this answer, the corners of Yi Huanyan's mouth curled up into a smile, which fell into Ling Li's eyes. "Let's go. I'll take you to eat Japanese food." In the Japanese restaurant downstairs, there weren't many people, but they were all seated in the booth. Yi Huanyan lowered her head and ordered the food. Ling Shui, who was sitting opposite her, was biting the grilled sausage. She tugged at Ling Li's sleeve with her other hand and whispered, "Sister." Following Ling Shui's gaze, Ling Li raised his head and looked. There was a man and a woman sitting by the window. Ling Shui saw Ling Han first, but Ling Li had sharp eyes. Following the direction she pointed, he saw the woman opposite Ling Han at a glance. "You really get what you want." A trace of displeasure flashed through Ling Li's eyes. "Hey, what are you two eating?" The woman's figure in the distance suddenly got up and walked in the direction of the bathroom. "I want to go to the bathroom. You order." Ling Li suddenly stood up. "Me too," Ling Shui echoed. She was still holding half a grilled sausage in her hand. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. "Oh, that's fine. You know where the bathroom is, right?" "Yes." Yi Huanyan looked back worriedly at the two sisters. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure by the window. She didn't know if it was telepathy, but Ling Han also raised his head at this moment. Even though she looked away in time, she still couldn't avoid his gaze. There was a sound of footsteps behind her, followed by a familiar voice. "Yi Huanyan, why are you here?" Yi Huanyan could only brace herself and look up. "I came to eat." Ling Han was slightly stunned. He frowned and said, "Are you following me?" "Definitely not," Yi Huanyan quickly explained. "I brought Ling Li and Ling Shui out." Ling Han raised his eyebrows, pulled out a chair, and sat directly opposite her. "Oh, where are they?" "They went to the bathroom." "Your ability to make up lies has improved a lot." "It's true." Yi Huanyan's eyes flashed with a trace of anger. "Why would I follow you?" "Because..." When the words were about to come out of his mouth, Ling Han was slightly stunned. He thought about it and didn't say it out loud. He muttered, "If you're not following me, then so be it." Yi Huanyan heaved a sigh of relief. After looking at him for a while, she hesitated and said, "Are you alone? Do you want to eat together?" Ling Han was slightly stunned. Of course he wasn't here to eat alone. Yi Huanyan instantly understood and quickly waved her hand. "Well, it's not convenient, right? You should be. You came out with your grandmother's relatives, right?" He didn't know why, but when she asked, Ling Han suddenly felt guilty when he came out to eat with Shang Anren openly and to talk about work. It was as if these days of peaceful coexistence had become a habit for him, and he didn't want to break this kind of harmony. It seemed that as long as he said the three words Shang Anren at the moment, the piece they had painstakingly painted would collapse in an instant. In the bathroom, Shang Anren came out to wash her hands after going to the toilet. Next to the sink was a beautiful mixed-race girl, wearing a black coat, with cold eyebrows and very temperament. She couldn't help but look at her. When she turned around, she didn't pay attention to it. She only heard a little girl's exclamation. When she reacted, her white sweater was covered with oil. The culprit was a grilled sausage in the hand of the little girl in red who had just rushed in. "My grilled sausage." Ling Shui stared at her grilled sausage in disbelief. After 2 seconds, she suddenly began to cry out loud. Hey, what's the matter with you? I haven't asked you how you hit me. Do you know how much my clothes cost? You can't afford it even if you sell it. Are you going to sell my sister? Suddenly there was a gloomy voice behind him. Shang Anren frowned. What's your sister? You too. The sound of crying in the bathroom attracted many people to look in the direction of the bathroom. Yi Huanyan suddenly remembered that Ling Li and Ling Shui were still in the bathroom. He jumped up from his chair and ran toward the bathroom. Pushing through the crowd, a woman's figure was facing Yi Huanyan with her back to him, screaming and trying to shake off the hand of a girl in black. Ling Shui is sitting on the ground and crying with her mouth open. You bully my sister, don't go. Ling Li's voice was very cold and crisp. She refused to let go of the woman's arm. It could be seen from the woman's red wrist that she had used a lot of strength. Whose child has no one to take care of it? Let me go. Who bullied your sister? It's your sister who dirtied my clothes. The woman's scream was very harsh. This voice sounds familiar. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned and looked at the woman's back carefully. It can't be, right? Shang Anren. Chapter 164. What's the matter? Yi Huanyan hurriedly stepped forward and pulled them apart. Ling Li, who was 13 years old, inherited her mother Chris's long legs. She was as tall as a high school girl in China. In addition, girls who lived abroad always dressed more maturely. She looked like a girl who was 17 or 18 years old. In addition, she was born with sports talent. At this moment, she pulled Shang Anren, which was an overwhelming victory. It was not easy to be pulled away by Yi Huanyan. Hearing the familiar voice, Shang Anren frowned and looked up to see Yi Huanyan. Her face suddenly sank. Yi Huanyan? Don't tell me you brought these two children. Yi Huanyan looked back and closed the door of the bathroom. As you can see, I brought these two girls, but... You're deliberately looking for trouble, aren't you? Before Yi Huanyan finished speaking, Shang Anren turned her face. You know I'm having dinner with Ling Han here. You deliberately found two children to dirty my clothes and want me to make a fool of myself? Yi Huanyan frowned. Are you having dinner with Ling Han? What are you pretending to be? Shang Anren's face sank. I hate your pretentious look. Get out of here. Wait a minute. Yi Huanyan raised his arm in front of her. What else do you want? I have to make it clear first. Our children don't know you at all. Why do you say they are deliberately looking for trouble? If there is, we will apologize. If not, I brought them out, and I can't let them be bullied at will. Shang Anren frowned, pulled the white sweater under her coat, and said coldly, Bully at will? Yi Huanyan, get your facts straight. Do you see? Do you know how much this sweater costs? Do you see it? It's this bitch who came out of nowhere who rubbed it on me. Is that so? Yi Huanyan turned to look at Ling Li. Ling Li raised her chin with a proud look. Who did it on purpose? I was washing my hands when Shui came in to look for me. She was the one who turned around and accidentally bumped into me. How is it that we did it on purpose? Ling Li was an unforgiving person when he was in the right, and when he was not in the right, he would snatch 3 points. Yi Huanyan was well aware of this. She remembered that she had seen Shang Anren's big poster in the mall before dinner. She understood a little in her heart, but she was too lazy to tell her. She lowered her head, pulled Ling Shui up from the ground, and said in a muffled voice, Shang Anren, I'll compensate you for your clothes. Whether the children did it on purpose or not, I'll apologize for them, but you have to apologize to them too. Shang Anren frowned and looked at Yi Huanyan in disbelief. You have a fever? What nonsense are you spouting? Why should I apologize to these two brats? You have to apologize, or twice. Yi Huanyan took Ling Shui's hand and looked serious. The first time, you called Shui a bitch. The second time, you called them a brat. You can have no family education, but in front of children, if people with no family education don't apologize, they will think that there are no serious consequences for having no family education. If they learn bad things in the future, I can't explain it to their parents." Hearing this, Shang Anren sneered. "Yi Huanyan, are you kidding? Whether your children will learn bad things or not has nothing to do with me. Forget about the compensation. I have something to do. I don't want to talk nonsense with you." After saying this, she opened the door of the bathroom and left without looking back. "Hey you!" Lingli was about to catch up, but was stopped by Yi Huanyan. "That's enough, you two. I'll compensate them for the money. If you don't like them, don't go too far." "Did you just see Ling Han?" The two girls looked at each other. Lingli curled his lips unwillingly. "Then you said that people with no family education should be punished. It's you two who are wrong first. Just leave some face for your brother Ling Han. After a while, go out as if nothing happened, do you hear me?" Lingli slowly exhaled. "All right." When they walked out of the bathroom, the two girls looked at each other, and a very similar cunning light flashed in their eyes. When they returned to the restaurant, Ling Han had gone back to his card seat. It seemed that he had just sat down. Yi Huanyan heard Shang Anren's complaint. "I just encountered something unhappy in the bathroom. You have to accompany me in the afternoon, or I will be angry all day." She frowned and dodged Shang Anren's provocative gaze that seemed to float over. As soon as she sat down, Lingli stretched out his hand to her. "Give it to me." "What?" She was slightly stunned. "Wallet. Don't you want to compensate that woman?" Lingli said righteously, "I'll give it to her. I'll apologize to her." "You want to apologize?" Yi Huanyan felt that he might have heard wrong. Lingli opened Yi Huanyan's bag without saying a word, took out a stack of banknotes from the wallet, and then strode toward the card seat by the window. Ling Shui looked at Yi Huanyan meaningfully, took a sip of juice in a hurry, and then followed her sister. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a long time. At this moment, Ling Li and her sister had gone to the table of Shang Anren and Ling Han. "This is the money for your sweater." Ling Li opened the wallet and pulled out a stack of banknotes. "My mother said that if you break other people's things, you have to pay for it." In front of Ling Han, Shang Anren naturally would not be willing to embarrass a little girl. Her expression stiffened slightly. She glanced at Ling Han before she said, "Don't worry." No, sister, I don't blame you. Just pay attention to it in the future." "Han, these two girls just dirted my sweater in the bathroom. I don't blame them. They are quite sensible." "Oh." Ling Han raised his eyebrows and looked at his two little cousins in front of him with interest. "Since sister doesn't blame us, then we're even about the sweater, right?" "Well, this of course." Shang Anren frowned and looked at the banknotes on the table. She was a little depressed. 1,000 yuan was not enough to buy a sleeve of the sweater she was wearing. "Then, shouldn't you apologize to my sister for pushing her just now?" A cold light appeared in Ling Li's eyes as he stared straight at Shang Anren. Shang Anren's face changed. "Hey! How can you talk like that? If you hadn't dirted my sweater and blocked my way, would I have pushed her?" "Did you push Shui? A faint male voice came from the opposite side. Shang Anren's eyes froze and she quickly explained. "No, Han, listen to me, it's these two uneducated stinky girls." She suddenly realized something and felt her neck a little stiff. "Han, you just called her name? You?" Ling Li raised her chin and blinked at Ling Han. Her voice was clear. "Brother, this sister not only pushed Shui, but she also said that we were uneducated and called us cheap girls." Shang Anren felt that her whole face was stiff. She forced a smile and looked at Ling Han. She's your sister." Chapter 165. Ling Han's face darkened a little, and his eyes were alienated. "What do you think?" Shang Enren's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. He looked embarrassed and forced a smile. "That's really a misunderstanding." "It's just a misunderstanding." "Brother, is this your girlfriend?" Ling Li deliberately raised his voice and said contemptuously, My grandmother, my parents, and my mother don't seem to like this kind of woman very much, right? Shang Anren's face darkened even more. Ling Han put down the cup in his hand, and his eyes were cold. Anren, I have something to do today. Let's make an appointment another day. Han. Shang Anren hurriedly stood up. I really didn't mean to. I didn't know they were your sisters. Ling Han had already picked up his coat, took Ling Xue's hand, and left decisively. Ling Li, who had fallen behind, turned around and glanced at Shang Anren. I didn't just say that to stimulate you. You'd better take it to heart. If there is really someone in the world who can match up to my brother Ling Han, that person can only be Yi Huanyan. After saying this, Ling Li threw Shang Anren a very complacent look, and immediately turned away. Shang Anren clenched the napkin in his hand, looked over the very sharp-tongued and cunning girl, and looked coldly at the figure of the woman in the distance who hurriedly got up and left behind Ling Han, and clenched his teeth. Yi Huanyan, it was Yi Huanyan again. She was just a burden brought into the Ling family by Ling Han's stepmother. Why was she worthy of him? What qualifications did she have to deserve him? Yi Huanyan saw Ling Han holding Ling Xue's hand and leaving, so she hurriedly packed up and paid the bill to follow them. She didn't even have time to figure out what had happened, and inexplicably followed Ling Han and Ling Xue out of the Japanese restaurant. What did you just say? Did your brother just leave Shang Anren alone? Ling Li followed beside her. A trace of craftiness flashed in his eyes as he whispered, Don't worry about what I said. My brother is definitely planning to eat with us now. I'm not helping you for free. My mommy said that the cost of transporting my skateboard back to the United States will be deducted from my pocket money. You pay for me. The group was led by Ling Han through the mall and finally arrived at a Chinese restaurant. By the time they finished eating, it was already past 3 in the afternoon. Fortunately, with Ling Li and Ling Xue around, the dining scene wasn't too awkward. Ling Xue nestled by Ling Han's side and ate whatever he fed her. She was clearly a 10-year-old girl and was considered to be taller than her peers. However, she had a very childish baby face no matter how one looked at it. She looked like a 5 or 6-year-old child, and anyone would want to go up and pinch her. Looking at how Ling Han dotingly picked up food for Ling Han, Yi Huanyan sighed in her heart. Ling Han was a siscon, wasn't he? Ling Li was such an unreasonable girl. She could see at a glance that he was deliberately teasing Shang Anren. How could he not see it? How could he just leave Shang Anren alone? After the meal, Ling Han wiped Ling Xue's mouth and looked up. It's getting late. I'll take you home. Yi Huanyan was about to agree when Ling Li interrupted. But Xue and I still want to go to the game hall to catch dolls. Ling Han was slightly stunned. He looked down at the well-behaved Xue beside him. Is that so, Xue? Ling Xue glanced at her sister and nodded with a smile. Her voice was sweet. Yes, catch dolls. I want that snowman doll. Ling Han looked up at Yi Huanyan. I'm fine. Why don't you take them there and I'll go home by myself? The moment he finished speaking, Ling Li, who was by his side, rolled his eyes. You really can't support a wall with mud. Ling Han glanced at Yi Huanyan. You brought them out. Now you're going back by yourself. How are you going to explain it to Uncle? Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds. It took a long time for her to understand what Ling Han meant. Ling Li walked past her and glanced at her. Idiot. The first floor of the mall was the game hall where the wind and clouds rose again. The entire first floor of the basement was filled with claw machines, big and small, and all kinds of dolls. After exchanging for a basket of game coins, Ling Li pulled Ling Xue and began to play in the game hall. As soon as he turned around, he disappeared. Ling Han looked at the claw machine in front of him that had just been abandoned by a couple. He glanced at Yi Huanyan, who was holding a frame and didn't know what to do. Do you want that? Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds. Ha! Ling Han looked a little uncomfortable. He frowned and said, You have nothing to do. Are you going to stand here until it's dark? The claw machine that had just been abandoned by a couple had Doraemon in it. It was very big and it required 3 game coins to catch it. Ling Han took 3 game coins from the frame in Yi Huanyan's hand and put them in. He lowered his head and studied the claw machine. Then, he pressed the catch button. Yi Huanyan muttered softly, "You can't catch it like this." Ling Han frowned and said contemptuously, "How is that possible?" In the next second, the claw of the machine had just hooked onto Doraemon's body. Before it could be lifted completely, it fell through the gap between the claw. Ling Han's face instantly darkened. "There's something wrong with this machine, right? How can such a loose claw catch it?" Yi Huanyan's face stiffened. She handed over 3 game coins and probed, "Why don't you try again?" Try again, the result was the same. 3 times. Failure. 4 times. Failure. Seeing the man's face getting darker and angrier, Yi Huanyan suddenly felt like laughing. Ling Han's tone was sullen. "Who's the owner of this shop? This kind of machine definitely can't catch anything." Yi Huanyan carefully observed his expression. "Why don't I try?" "You." Ling Han glanced at her and did not comment. Yi Huanyan put the box in her hand into Ling Han's arms, took out 3 game coins, and stuffed them into the coin slot. After hearing the sound, she began to adjust the direction of the controller. After looking at the distance from the side, she waited until the last second when her claws naturally fell. Then, she pressed the grab button again. After Doraemon was firmly grabbed, it reached the top and shook violently. There was a cry of surprise behind her. Yi Huanyan turned around in surprise, only to see Ling Han's tense expression. A person who wasn't even this nervous when talking about a collaboration worth tens of millions showed such an expression when looking at a claw machine? Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds. Suddenly, she saw his eyes widen. At this time, her hand that was holding the handle trembled slightly. She looked in the direction of the sound. The cover of the claw machine moved, revealing one of Doraemon's legs. "This is a matter of luck, right?" Ling Han took out the plushie from the machine. He frowned and awkwardly stuffed it into Yi Huanyan's hand. Yi Huanyan nodded slowly and hid the smile in her heart. "Well, you can say that." Ling Han did not know that Yi Huanyan was still in junior high when she started playing with the claw machine. She was considered the little tyrant of the arcade back then. Even the boss would tremble when he saw her. However, in front of the person she liked, she should at least give him some face. After all, men cared about face the most. "You should do it. My luck should be used up." Yi Huanyan smiled slightly. Chapter 166. When they finally left the game hall. Yi Huanyan was holding a huge Doraemon in her hands and a candy-shaped pillow that looked like a child's. Ling Li and Ling Shui could be considered to have a big harvest. Each of them carried a big sack, and walked on the road as if they were doll vendors who were going to the night market to set up a stall. "Brother Ling Han, the 2 of you only managed to catch these 2 things after working for so long?" Ling Li rolled his eyes at Yi Huanyan. Did Yi Huanyan catch such a big basket of coins? This idiot is obviously a handicapped person. Ling Han coughed dryly and looked embarrassed. "It's getting late. I'll send you back." It was getting late. Starting from New Year's Eve, there would be 5 consecutive days of fireworks in the city center. Today was the last day. Before getting in the car, a huge hole was cut open by the fireworks in the distant night sky. The sound of explosions rose and fell one after another, exploding in the night sky. It was very lively. Ling Shui threw a big bag of dolls into the trunk of Ling Han's car. Then, she stood by the side of the road and danced. There was a hint of childishness in her clear voice. "Wow, sister, brother, look, it's a fireworks party." Yi Huanyan had just opened the car door when she heard the sound. She looked through the windshield in front of the car and saw the night sky that was illuminated brilliantly by the fireworks. The sound of the fireworks dispelled the oppressive feeling in the car, making Yi Huanyan feel relieved. Under the background of the fireworks, the car drove through the main city area and headed in the direction of the old mansion. The sound of the fireworks gradually faded away. The two girls who had played in the back seat all day fell asleep at some point. The car gradually fell into silence. The servants of the old mansion have all gone back, right? Ling Han's voice was very soft, probably because he was afraid of waking up his two sisters. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds and nodded. Yes, when we left in the morning, most of the servants had come back. Aunt Zhang should be back at noon. Is there any problem at home? How's Grandma these 2 days? No problem. Yi Huanyan shook her head. Seeing that Ling Han was interested in talking to her, she unknowingly became more talkative. The old house has been quite lively these days. Chris and Little Bean are accompanying Grandma every day. Uncle often goes out, but he doesn't go far. He just strolls around the old town and goes back when it's time to eat. Ling Li and Ling Shui are not as noisy as before. They are more or less sensible. But Grandma still says that it's better for children to be noisy. After rambling on for a long time, Yi Huanyan suddenly realized that she was talking nonsense again. Her throat seemed to be blocked by something. She slowly turned her head and nervously observed Ling Han's expression. His expression was calm as he stared straight ahead at the road in front of the windshield. His side profile was as cold as ever, and his hands on the steering wheel looked very serious. Almost there. Yi Huanyan watched as his thin lips moved up and down a few times before his voice rang in her ears. He didn't seem to be annoyed with her. She slowly exhaled, nodded, and replied, yes. Compared to the bustling city center, the old town with firecrackers everywhere and the big red lanterns on the doors of every house was more festive. When they got out of the car, Yi Huanyan woke up the two girls in the back seat. The two rubbed their eyes and yawned as they got out of the car and staggered into the house. The helpers helped carry the things in the trunk and followed them. Yi Huanyan unbuckled her seatbelt and turned around to ask, aren't you coming down to see Grandma? Ling Han held the steering wheel with an indifferent expression. No need. They called to rush me. He was referring to Wan Qingwan's maternal family, his maternal grandfather's family. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. It was as if she had touched a minefield. She was cautious and didn't dare to ask more. Then, be careful on the road. She pushed open the car door. When she left, her expression was a little stiff. A cold voice came from behind her. I'll be back before the 8th. She didn't know if his voice was too soft or the night wind was too strong, but this voice sounded a little dreamy to Yi Huanyan. It wasn't real. Ling Han's car drove away. From afar, she could only see the back of a car with black and gray exhaust fumes disappearing around the corner of the street. She stood at the door in a daze, a little absent-minded. Her mind replayed the moment she turned around to look at his mouth, the indifferent expression on his face, and the sentence floating in the wind. The wind in the old town is strong. It's easy to catch a cold. Don't stand outside. Hurry up and go back. These words were genuinely concerned about her, right? She stood in the wind for a long time and took a deep breath, as if she was secretly confirming something in her heart. After a long while, the corners of her mouth finally bloomed into a smile. Late at night, Yi Huanyan tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She got up to take a look. It was snowing outside, so she simply put on a coat and went out to enjoy the snow. Standing at the door, she rubbed her hands. A gust of cold wind blew in her face, and the snow fluttered down in the courtyard like cotton wool. With a creak, a tall and straight figure walked out of the room diagonally opposite. He closed the door sneakily, then slowly turned his head and met Yi Huanyan's eyes. Uncle, you are. Yi Huanyan stared at Ling Dongyu in a daze. His well-defined hands were holding half a pack of cigarettes. When he heard the sound, he suddenly shrank back and looked up at Yi Huanyan in embarrassment. Yen, this, it's snowing. The scenery outside is pretty good. I came out for a walk. In the corridor, Ling Dongyu lit the cigarette at the tip of his finger. After taking a puff, he exhaled a puff of smoke in satisfaction. It's just smoking. Why are you being so sneaky? Yi Huanyan was a little puzzled. Didn't Chris let you smoke? Ling Dongyu waved his hand that was holding the cigarette. The smoke in the corridor was even thicker. Yi Huanyan hid back, avoiding the smoky air. She doesn't care about me. Ling Dongyu's voice was very casual. Then why? It's all because of Ling Zhan. A month ago, I made an appointment with him to quit smoking. Ling Dongyu frowned and was quite dissatisfied. How old is this damn brat to start learning to smoke? What's wrong with him? He's making a mess at home with Chris. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. Are you saying that Ling Zhan is smoking? The 15-year-old Ling Zhan had always been a representative of good conduct. He was completely different from his father, Ling Dongyu, who was not good since he was young. Since he was young, he did what his parents asked him to do well, and he firmly refused to do what he was not allowed to do. He did not look like a child who would smoke. Then uncle, what are you? I've been smoking for so long. How can it be so easy to quit? I'll just coax the child. You didn't see anything today. Ling Dongyu turned around and stubbed out the cigarette but in the snow in the corridor. He grinned at Yi Huanyan. Don't tell Ling Zhan. After saying this, Ling Dongyu raised one leg and directly stepped over the wooden railing of the corridor. He crossed the snowy courtyard and quietly returned to the house. Yi Huanyan smiled helplessly. Just as she was about to return to the house, there was another creak. Yi Huanyan was stunned. She looked up and saw Ling Zhan standing at the door with half a pack of cigarettes in his hand. When he saw Yi Huanyan, his face tightened a little, just like Ling Dongyu. Chapter 167. Yi Huanyan hesitated for a few seconds. It's snowing outside. Go to bed early. After saying this, she stood up and walked towards her room. Ling Zhan was slightly stunned. He thought that it was already late at night, so there wouldn't be anyone outside. He didn't expect to meet Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan had been in the Ling family since he was very young. In his heart, Yi Huanyan wasn't an outsider. It wasn't until 2 years ago at Ling Doming's funeral, when he heard his relatives talking about how to deal with Yi Huanyan, that he suddenly remembered that Yi Huanyan wasn't a member of the Ling family. Sister Yan Yan. He called out to her in a hoarse voice. Yes. Yi Huanyan turned around. What's the matter? Can I sit in your room for a while? These words stunned Yi Huanyan for a few seconds. Ling Zhan quickly explained, I can't sleep if I don't smoke. I want to talk to you for a while. Yi Huanyan's room was lit with calming incense. The smell was light, and because of the heating in the room, it made people feel a little sleepy not long after they sat down. Ling Zhan had already put away the cigarette box. Yi Huanyan wrapped her own snack box from the bedside and placed it on the table. These were given to me by my friend before the new year. There are sweet, salty, and sour ones. Eat whatever you like. Ling Zhan was slightly stunned. Sister, I'm not a child anymore. These words made Yi Huanyan's hand that was holding the snacks pause for a moment. Suddenly, her expression was a little embarrassed. That's true. Have some tea then. A teenage boy who had just reached the rebellious stage should be very unwilling to be treated like a child by others. Although in Yi Huanyan's eyes, the 15-year-old Ling Zhan was indeed a child. Ling Zhan lowered his head and took a sip of the tea. It was jasmine tea. It was fragrant and left a lingering aftertaste, just like her. Are you really going to marry brother Ling Han? He suddenly asked. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a second. You know, more than half a year ago, Song Yunxian went to ask her grandmother to tell her about her relationship with Ling Han. Before Ling Han agreed, her grandmother didn't want Song Yunxuan's reputation to be damaged, so she didn't tell anyone about it. However, Ling Zhan was a member of the family. When he came back for the spring festival, it was normal for him to hear her grandmother and Chris talk about it when they were chatting. Ling Zhan frowned. So it's true? Do you agree? Yi Huanyan laughed self-deprecatingly. She was the one who asked for it. How could there be such a thing as whether she agreed or not? Ling Zhan's frown deepened when he saw that she only smiled without saying anything. That's true. Ling Han is a very outstanding person. All women should like him. How old are you? You're already starting to like someone? Yi Huanyan suddenly looked at Ling Zhan with interest. Don't tell me you're in love. Ling Zhan suddenly blushed. No, Sister Yen Yen. You're thinking too much. Yi Huanyan raised her eyebrows and looked up at the clock on the wall. It's fine if you're not in love. Ling Zhan, it's getting late. Go back and get some rest. It was already past 1 in the morning. Ling Zhan didn't seem to be tired, but Yi Huanyan's eyelids were already starting to droop. She couldn't help but yawn, thinking that children were so energetic. Ling Zhan didn't want to leave, but when she saw Yi Huanyan yawn, she didn't want to stay. Seeing Ling Zhan walk to the door, Yi Huanyan suddenly spoke. Smoking is bad for your health. It's just a temporary solution. If there's anything bothering you, you should tell me. If you want, I can listen to you at any time. Ling Zhan was a sloppy person. He was now in his 30s, but he still did things all day long. Chris often had to clean up after him. There were many children at home, so it was normal that Chris couldn't take care of him. It was a miracle that Ling Zhan could grow up to be such an outstanding young man. So Yi Huanyan didn't think that his little rebellious smoking was a big deal. She just wanted to remind him that it was bad for his health. Ling Zhan's figure stiffened slightly, and he suddenly whispered, "There's nothing bothering me." After closing the door, Ling Zhan stood in front of Yi Huanyan's room and slowly exhaled. He took out the half-pack of cigarettes from the pocket of his down jacket. After hesitating for a while, he threw it into the trash can. He and his 2 sisters had known Yi Huanyan for the same amount of time, 10 years. However, 10 years ago he was 5 years old, so he was the first among the 3 of them to start remembering things. Therefore, these 10 years were the 10 years that he remembered very clearly. The next morning, Ling Xue's screams and cheers rang out in the courtyard. When Yi Huanyan got up, rubbing her eyes and yawning, the 2 sisters were already building a snowman in the courtyard. Seeing Yi Huanyan come out, Lingli grabbed the scarf around her neck and said, "Lend me this." After saying that, he put her scarf around the snowman's neck. Yi Huanyan touched her neck that was kissed by the cold wind and sneezed. She was completely awake. "Lingli, don't you have a scarf around your neck?" Ling Zhan's voice sounded beside him. Lingli didn't even turn his head. "I'm cold." Yi Huanyan's face darkened. Before she could react, her neck suddenly felt warm. The checkered Burberry scarf was wrapped around her neck. She lowered her head and smelled the faint scent of detergent. "Sister Yen Yen, you can use mine first." Yi Huanyan quickly reached out to pull it away. No, if you catch a cold. I'm a man." The young man's stubborn eyes shone with a strange light. Yi Huanyan didn't refuse. "Okay then, pull your collar up. Don't catch a cold." As soon as she said that, a snowball exploded on his right shoulder. Snowflakes flew everywhere. Yi Huanyan exclaimed. As soon as she turned around, she was pulled back by Ling Zhan. Suddenly, a snowball fell from the sky and hit the windowsill where she had just been standing. "Ling Li, that's enough." Ling Zhan's voice sounded in front of her. She sounded a little serious. Obviously, Ling Li wasn't someone who listened to her brother so easily. Now that Ling Zhan was angry, she became more energetic. Ling Xue created snowballs from behind while she threw them in front. 4 or 5 snowballs came crashing down one after another. In the blink of an eye, Yi Huanyan's surroundings were a mess. Ling Zhan suddenly became angry. She picked up 2 snowballs from the ground and threw them at the 2 culprits. "Ah!" Ling Xue screamed. "Brother, don't throw them into my collar." "I'm freezing," Ling Li shouted. "Xue, don't be afraid. I'll avenge you." Yi Huanyan handed a snowball to Ling Zhan and said hurriedly, "Quick, strike first to gain the initiative." There was a burst of screams and laughter in the courtyard. Through the window, the blonde Chris looked back at her unruly husband who was playing with Little Bean on the sofa. She frowned and said, "Dongyu, Jean is having a snowball fight outside." "So what?" "He's reading in the study all day. His brain is going to be damaged." Her husband's indifferent voice came from the sofa, mixed with Little Bean's giggles. Jean put his scarf around Yen Yan's neck. So what? He knows how to respect and cherish women. He's not stupid. Chris looked worried. You're really not worried? Worried about what? Ling Dongyu looked up and looked out of the window with a faint smile. He doesn't have the ability to take someone away from Ling Han. Chapter 168. When Ling Han stepped into the courtyard of the East Courtyard, a snowball hit him right in the head. It exploded and snowflakes flew everywhere. His face froze and he looked in the direction the snowball came from. Behind the red pillar in the corridor, Yi Huanyan was looking at him in surprise. It wasn't the 8th day yet. Why was he back? Ling Li, on the other hand, stuck his head out from behind the snow pile and cried out in alarm. Ah! Yi Huanyan, how old are you? Why are you playing with kids? Ling Han frowned. Brother Ling Han, it's not Sister Yen Yan's fault. We were the ones who played with her. Beside Yi Huanyan, another figure walked out from the shadow of the pillar. It was Ling Zhan. Ling Han finally noticed the man's scarf around Yi Huanyan's neck. His face suddenly darkened. The whole courtyard is covered in snow. Is it a joke to fall and knock your head on the ground? Ling Han's return put an end to the snowball fight. Aunt Zhang came to the courtyard and urged them to go out for breakfast. Ling Li and Ling Shui saw that the situation was not good, so they ran away with Aunt Zhang. Only Yi Huanyan was left in the courtyard. Ling Zhan, who was about the same height as her, followed by Ling Han, who was slowly walking in from the entrance of the courtyard. Of course, there was also the couple and the little boy who were hiding in the opposite room. Aren't you worried that your son will be crushed by Ling Han and his self-esteem will be hurt? Chris looked out of the window worriedly. Ling Dongyu crossed his legs and looked indifferent. If you don't let him suffer some setbacks, he won't be able to release his adolescent restlessness. He's 15 years old and has never fought or argued with anyone. He always gives in to others and doesn't even have a hobby. I don't think he's like my son. Hearing this, Chris rolled his eyes. You have a lot of hobbies. Didn't he learn to smoke from you? I smoke for enjoyment. He smokes to vent. It's different. You always have a reason. Chris was too lazy to talk to him. He turned around and continued to look out the window. Opposite the window, Ling Han walked closer and glanced at Ling Zhan. You go eat first. Normally, Ling Han was the eldest cousin who always kept his word. No matter what he said, the younger siblings would never object. Even the most mischievous Ling Li would be scared into silence by a single look from him. Ling Zhan's temper was good, and she had never been reprimanded by him. Speaking of which, this was the first time he had been looked at with such a gaze, which made him feel a sense of contempt. Ling Zhan suddenly lost his temper and stubbornly stood in front of Yi Huanyan. Brother Ling Han, Auntie Zhang asked us to eat. Let's go together. You go first. I have something to say to Sister Yen Yen. Before Ling Han could finish, Ling Zhan interrupted him. Ling Han's face darkened slightly. What could you have to say to her? This is between me and Sister Yen Yen. After saying this, Ling Zhan turned around and looked at Yi Huanyan. Sister, do you still mean what you said last night? Last night? Ling Han frowned and stared at Ling Zhan warily. Yi Huanyan didn't notice anything strange and nodded hesitantly. Yes, I do. Why are you so suddenly? Do you want to say something now? I have something to give you. Come with me. Ling Zhan didn't say anything. She pulled her wrist and walked towards her room. Yi Huanyan. Ling Han's cold voice sounded behind her. Did he rush back to the old house early in the morning just to see her look like an idiot who couldn't see anything? Yi Huanyan hurriedly turned around and glanced at him. Before Ling Zhan pulled her away, she hurriedly said, Go ahead and eat. Well, you go to eat first. Ling Zhan may want to talk to me about something. I'll go there later. Seeing Yi Huanyan disappear from Ling Zhan's room, Ling Han's face turned green. He pushed open the door to Yi Huanyan's room and walked straight in. In the opposite room, Chris said bitterly, "You really don't care? What's there to care about? Yan Yan is 11 years older than Ling Zhan. So what if she's 11 years older?" Ling Dongyu put the little boy back on the sofa and sat up straight. "No matter how old she is, Ling Zhan won't be able to win Yan Yan's heart. How can you belittle your own son like that?" Chris was suddenly unhappy. "Then do you want Ling Zhan to win her heart or not?" "Of course I want." Before Chris could finish his sentence, he suddenly didn't know what to think anymore. Ling Dongyu slowly said, "You're worrying too much." Ling Zhan took out an exquisitely made merry-go-round music box from her suitcase and handed it to Yi Huanyan. "This is for you." Yi Huanyan's eyes lit up. A New Year's gift. Ling Zhan opened his mouth, but in the end, he nodded. "I guess so." "Is this what you wanted to tell me?" "Yes, there's more." "More?" Yi Huanyan looked up in confusion. Ling Zhan's face was 70% similar to Ling Dongyu's. The other 30% was inherited from his mother, Chris. Although he was only 15 years old, he was not younger than his peers. Other than his height, he already looked like a young man. "I've applied to enter university in advance. When I graduate, can you attend my graduation ceremony?" "Ha!" Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. "Graduation ceremony? Won't your parents be there?" "They are them, and you are you." Faced with Ling Zhan's stubbornness, Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment. "If you're not busy, it should be fine. I'll finish all my courses within a year." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan counted on her fingers and her face froze. "You plan to graduate at 16 years old? Are you really a straight-A student?" She suddenly felt a little ashamed. After all, as an older sister, she was really not a good role model when it came to studying. Ling Zhan thought that she did not believe him. In a spurt of energy, he flipped his suitcase upside down and placed all the certificates and awards he had received over the years in front of Yi Huanyan. "Sister, look, this is the state swimming champion certificate, this is the debating competition, this is the art exhibition, this is..." Yi Huanyan thoroughly experienced the feeling of a straight-A student trembling in fear in front of a straight-A student. She suddenly felt that Ling Zhan did not find her to be a bosom friend. He came to crush her with IQ to achieve spiritual pride. Ling Zhan, I'm a little hungry. I'm going to eat first." You're really amazing. Really amazing. Study hard and improve every day." Yi Huanyan walked out of Ling Zhan's room in a hurry. It was as if she was running away. She slammed the door to her room. It was not easy for her to breathe a sigh of relief, but when she saw the figure in front of the table, her body froze again. "Why are you here?" "Waiting for you." Ling Han's face was a little sullen. He stared at the scarf around her neck and asked, "Don't you have a scarf yourself? Do you like to use other people's so much?" You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.